Mr. Nick.
Hello.
Hey. Dude, trying to get my second wind. This is my second one today.
I know, you've had a long day.
Just make sure that you're up on it.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of go into it. I guess I kind of want to start just by asking you about you, man. I will say, I don't believe, and I think I have had on a Democrat before. But I'm pretty sure you're like my first one.
I'm glad to take the slot, and hopefully people will see where I'm coming from on all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, let's start out with who you are, where you're from, why are you running? I mean, the basic.
Yeah.
So before I've got a ton of questions.
Good.
And hopefully you got some insight on it, especially coming from like a different party look or aspect. So yeah, man, who are you?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a little opener here on the. So I'm Nick Zateslo. I'm running for the 2nd Congressional District. This is Neil Dunn's seat that he's retiring from. And when he retired back in January, there's now an open seat. And so there's, I think, 9 Republicans running. There's 4 Democrats. So I'm one of the Democrats in that primary for this congressional seat. I grew up in Tallahassee and went to Rickards High School over there. Grew up on the south side of town. I was in the drumline and the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program in high school, and then basically bounced around the state and the country for a little bit, working on tech companies, working on public policy, things like voting rights, making sure it's easier for people to register to vote, to cast their ballot, and then, some kind of general good government stuff, right? Environmental reforms, making sure that public schools are funded, stuff like that. But mainly my job for the last 20 years has been in technology, was building and running tech companies. And so I did that work, and that basically brought me into AI because I was working in technology when AI sort of started coming out a few years ago. And then I ended up getting on the board with an AI research lab, one of the small ones out in New Orleans. I ended up just really starting to build with it. I'm not a programmer myself, but I'm a tinkerer and a business guy. And so I started realizing the power of AI, what's coming, before it kind of got popular, and started seeing what they're doing, what people in San Francisco are thinking about, what the people who are really building this, right? What is their vision of this, the top people up there. And then seeing stuff like the data centers and, the scope of these things and how big they are and what's going on. And so when I jumped in this race, a year and a little bit ago, it was basically in my head half and half between the constitutional crisis that we're in around Trump and the power of Congress and all of that's going on, and AI, right? And what's happening next. And basically the AI piece of the puzzle has become the undercurrent of the whole race for me. And so we're getting just every time we talk to people, I get more questions about AI than anything else. And and I understand that. I get why. I've got 2 little kids. I've got a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So my older one is starting 1st grade in August and in public school in Tallahassee. And my younger one is in daycare, and we pay more for his daycare than it would cost us to go to Florida State University, tuition and books paid. Right? The cost of parents dealing with young kids right now is out of control, and no one talks about it. It's just sort of this hidden thing that if you're in that, you have to deal with it. And my wife's a small business owner, and she's a therapist, and she's keeping us afloat. And so we really are living in the real economy, right? Of like what is going on with parents. I've had businesses myself. I've also been an Uber driver, right? I've worked the gig economy because I needed money, and I've worked W-2 good employment, and I've seen both sides of this, and I've seen what's coming. So the short answer is I'm running to protect our home, to protect this place that we all have to live in, and that we get to live in, and that we want to live in. My family's from Panama City. My grandma lived in Oakland Terrace, right across from the elementary school there on Frankfurt Avenue. And that's where my mom grew up. That's grandma's house, right? It doesn't feel like coming to Panama City, doesn't feel like it's a campaign stop. It's just coming home. And, I want to protect that place and make sure that it's good for my kids to grow up and your kids to grow up in. So that's the short answer on that.
Well, I tell you what, I like that answer. I like the fact you're like, hey, I want to protect home. That's kind of like a big deal. We're going to get into some nuts and bolts about protection, protecting our home. I know I got some immigration questions. I do like the fact that you brought up AI, kind of like as one of your first. So keep in mind these questions that I'm about to ask you. I've already asked to 2 other candidates before you. They're not, I don't believe that they're trick questions. They're straight up. If you believe that something is a trick question or I'm trying to catch up, you just look at me and be like, hey man, that's messed up.
I'll let you know. I think if I have a different framing on the question, I'll let you know on it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that I'm going to get, again, different questions just by the fact that you're a Democrat.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to the conversation. So we're going to start off with first 100 days. You get elected today. In your first 100 days, what are you looking to do? What are some of the first initiatives? What are like any specific bill or piece of legislation that you're going to try to introduce or support?
Yeah. So I think that my internal focus is on basically making sure that our economy and our society and, our local governments are prepared for what's coming in AI. We need to do a lot of stuff with Trump and with the administration and with what's going on there. It's not my highest priority because I feel like Democrats are going to be doing that stuff, and I'll join when it's appropriate and pull back when it's not, right? Because I don't think that needs to be our whole fight. For on the basically legislation side of it, it is things like decoupling, making sure that if you lose your job, you don't lose your healthcare. Right now, if your boss decides you have a doctor, you have a good doctor. If your boss says they don't want to give you healthcare, you don't get healthcare, right? It's a weird system that we're in where your job and your boss control your kids' healthcare, right? I think that's a problem because as tasks start to get eaten up by AI, more people are going to be in the gig economy, more people are going to be in the contractor economy, more people are going to be in the part-time economy, and that usually doesn't include healthcare. And so that's the first thing I would do. We can talk big picture about universal pay or Medicare for all or all sorts of different private industry solutions to this. But I think we need to solve it that your doctor and your job shouldn't be connected, right? You should be able to get good healthcare outside of your job.
Do you not think that you can?
So right now, I don't have healthcare through work, and you can go on the Obamacare exchange and get something. I mean, we pay $1,500 a month for healthcare for 2 kids, and it still costs us $150 every visit. And we get a discount prescription card in the mail.
Healthcare's I think
it's almost a scam.
It's not almost. It is.
Right.
Health insurance is a scam because it's a risk, right? You're paying for a risk. Basically, you're just trying to mitigate the risk if something were to happen. If you were to take all the money that you spend on healthcare and then you just save it in a savings account, and then if something does come up or happen, then you have the money to do it. I get it. It's nice to have it, but and mainly all doctors and healthcare providers now do the
cash
pay
option.
as you go type thing.
There's a lot moving in that direction because of how broken the whole insurance system is.
Yeah, the insurance system is but you're 100% right because like my last W-2 job that I had, I was paying, it was like $1,700 a month for my wife and my 2 kids because I don't have to have health care because I'm provided through the VA.
Right.
But just for my wife and my kids. And then here's my favorite. I don't have to have health care, right? Because I'm through the VA. And then my employer is still saying, no, you have to, in order for your family to get it.
Your family gets on, you have to get on it. Right.
And then it's like, make sense of this. Right. You can't make sense of it. Like
then if you're the primary spouse that has healthcare loses their job, again, everyone in your family loses their healthcare. Yeah. It's not just the paycheck. The paycheck is a problem, but again, paychecks are money and you can go make money in other ways. Yeah. You cannot go buy, I've been on W-2 good healthcare with companies. Yeah. I cannot buy that same coverage, even adding up how much the employer was paying and my paycheck. Why can't I go pay that? Right? Like, why can't that
do you
amount?
Actually believe that the employer is spending as much as they're saying?
So they say they spend $7,000 a year on each employee, right, of their coverage of it, and then you pay whatever they don't cover. I want to look at that in detail too. I want to see what they're actually paying. But let's say they are, right? Then great. Why can't basically the automation that's happening that's causing the layoffs, tax that automation a bit and make sure that covers people's employer contribution. So it also saves small businesses a ton of money, right? Every small business that's offering healthcare, which is great. Good for you, small business owners, right? Who are doing that and not just putting everybody at 38 hours a week and not giving them any healthcare and all that. I want to support those businesses. I want to make sure that the government picks up that tab and then that way the business owner can get back to working on their business, right? And not worrying about having to provide healthcare to all their employees without getting into the huge debate around universal payer and all that. This is a system that we already have. that healthcare, if you have a premium, good, private market healthcare and you want that to keep that, great. You should be able to keep that even if you lose your job, right? We need to separate out work and healthcare basically as a benefit. That healthcare is a work perk that you get. That is crazy and should have been solved 30 years ago, right? That's just
I will
there.
say though, I'm not in agreement with that the government should even touch healthcare.
Well,
I
that's the thing,
understand that there's got to be some sort of regulation there,
Right.
but
Well, that's what I
everything
mean,
the government touches, man, turns to
That's
shit.
the nice thing about this plan is that it doesn't touch it. It says the government should just pick up the tab for the employer side of it so that the government is making a payment, not deciding full healthcare policy, right? The government, the doctors aren't employed by the government. The insurance companies aren't provided by the government. We're just saying that right now your employer pays $7,000 on average per employee. Let's move that over and tax these data centers that are automating the market and pay $7,000 out of that or whatever we need to. Because again, I think you're right that it's probably much less than that when you actually look at it at scale. But the key thing is that any Fortune 500 company has much better healthcare options just to pick from, right? To choose their plans and how much they pay for their employees than any small business does.
Yeah.
Right? That shouldn't happen anymore. Everybody should be in one big group rate. We should be able to get the best of the Fortune 500 companies, whatever they get, we should be able to get, and small businesses should be able to get that, or people who are just solo entrepreneurs should be able to get that. That's the key thing, right? Is to make sure that you can't just not get good health insurance if you don't have a job.
I'm extremely interested in when you leave because I'm not. Oh, by the way, you're going to get fact checked with everything that you say.
Good.
It happens during the editing process, so obviously you'll be able to see it later.
Good.
So just know anything that's said, it gets there's stuff that gets thrown up there, and I'll show you an example of that later.
Perfect.
So within the first 100 days, one of the things that you want to focus on is healthcare.
Is healthcare, and again, not the big, huge healthcare fight, but the real one, the one that actually helps people, because I think layoffs are going to start. And I think that's the piece that most people aren't reacting to, is that companies are already starting to not hire as much. Companies are already starting to pull that rung up of like who they're hiring. And they haven't quite done mass layoffs yet, but it's next.
Yeah.
And if that happens faster than we think, which in the next 2 to 3 years, it could certainly start happening, we're in a big crisis, right? Again, because people, their life's going to collapse, not just their income. And we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. So that's a big one. Same thing with like networks and hospitals. And there's a few other things in there that I think are just kind of scams, right? That we could solve. That I got in a wreck one time and the ambulance, the ambulance took me to the wrong hospital, and I spent 3 years fighting them over thousands of dollars because I was in the wrong network, right, of hospital.
Or it's something as crazy as, so like my son a couple of months ago got hurt, and then we took him to the ER. And then it was like, you charged me like $2,300 for an ACE bandage.
Yeah. And that's it.
Are you like?
That's what mine was. It was like $5,000 or something for
kidding?
like some muscle relaxers and then getting
CVS
discharged.
And buy that for like $7.
Right.
And you're sitting there charging me $2,200. Then it's like, okay, well, I've got a $3,000 ER bill, and then the doctor's bill comes, and it's like, well, that's $2,300. I'm like, he saw the doctor for a total of like 2 minutes.
Right.
The doctor came in, said, hey, does it need an x-ray? No. All right, wrap him up. Okay, bye, see ya. Have a good one. His bill comes in for $2,200. Are you freaking insane?
Right.
Like, this is and so I look at it as kind of like, can you determine that as like price gouging?
Yeah, so there's two big pieces of it. One is the network thing, because they use that as their way to say, oh, that doctor was out of network, so we're going to charge 5 times more or whatever. That's crazy. That's a dispute between them, right?
But the thing about it is, these are the types of things though that need to be regulated.
Right, they do. Well, that's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be on the consumer though, right? The consumer got hurt. They had insurance. They went to a hospital. That's on the insurance company to now figure out internally how they're going to pay. The other piece is what you mentioned, is this idea of these hospital rates being so high. Hospitals right now are buying, especially in rural areas, they're buying family practitioner offices. So the big hospital has a ton of money, right? Yeah. They do galas, they do fundraisers, they're an entity. They then buy out small family doctors, and then nothing really changes on the front side, but the insurance billing becomes now a hospital visit. So now that bandage that your doctor used to give you, and it was just a Band-Aid and they might charge $5 on it or something, now it's $2,200, right? Because it's a hospital charge instead of a doctor's charge. Yeah. So those are stuff that we all pay for, because that just makes insurance more expensive. And the only people it helps is the hospital administrator's budget, right? They're getting a lot of extra cash out of this, and that's wrong. So those are some things I would do right away, again, that are very tangible and just sort of like, they're kind of behind the scenes, but there's stuff that I think would improve all of our healthcare options and life in there. And the other big thing is the data centers. I think we all have to deal with these huge mega hyperscale data centers coming in.
Are you against them?
I've been going around to these counties stopping them right now. I've been at 9 counties speaking at county commission meetings and doing a little more than just speaking. I've been actually creating the model ordinances for them because a lot of these counties, this is the first time they're hearing of a data center, right? They don't understand what it is. And we can go into data centers a little bit more. I'm sure we will, but
I haven't talked about it with any candidates.
Well,
yet,
the core point is that basically these things are so big, they're so different that we need to have actual legislation on. You can't just ban a data center, right? You can ban metrics, you can ban water usage, you can ban land usage, you can ban electricity usage, all that stuff. So that's what I wrote up and did a bunch of research around the country looking at what other counties had done to stop these things. And so I've been giving those out to those county commissioners, most of them Republicans, right? It's not a partisan thing. Again, it's part of like protecting our home, right? Like I have to live here too. I want to live here. I want my kids to live here. I don't want a huge 1,300 acre data center that takes as much power as Tallahassee and Panama City and Gainesville combined into one data center. The one in Polk County has that exact metrics on it, right? These things are so big that people don't understand how, like the scale of them. The best way I can think about it is that, you know, back in the 60s, you had somebody up here hiking up near the Georgia border, and they saw somebody with stakes and doing the surveying, and they said, yeah, I'm building a road out here called I-10. And it's a new road the government's building, but it's in the middle of nowhere, to nowhere, right? With no stop signs, not a road, right? It's not a normal road because it's an interstate, right? And that's different. And when the person said, where does it go? They said from Jacksonville to Los Angeles, right? That's crazy. That's a scale difference than a 2-lane dirt or paved road that we're used to, right? As roads. This thing is an interstate. AI and these data centers are an interstate. They're the same idea as a 2-lane road, right? But the interstate is just a different whole beast of like what it is. And we made a whole movie about Cars, right? The movie Cars is all about the interstate coming through and demolishing small towns. But it's just sort of myth in the US now that like that was good. Was it? I'll assume it's good. I don't think any of us would sort of say get rid of the interstates.
Well, what's funny about it is using that as a perfect example is the interstate was never designed for travel between you and me or even truckers or anything like that. The interstate was designed for military.
It's military infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the point is that someone made those decisions of which towns got an exit, which ones didn't get an exit, right? Which ones, and we're in that same moment right now, right? With AI, with these data centers, with AI build out, which is who's going to get an exit, which communities are going to be taken care of, which ones are going to survive, and which ones are just going to crash. Because this is infrastructure. AI is not an app, right? It's much closer to electricity. You don't ask a business, are you an electricity business? Do you use electricity? That's the default, right? Using AI is going to be the same way, right? And we need to understand that so that we don't get trapped in basically a private market where the only way to make your business successful or you to successful is to have a credit card and pay a private company a bunch of money and hope that they like what you're doing and don't turn you off. That's scary to me.
So my question about the data centers when it comes to you is that, are you mainly against it because of the environmental? Mm-hmm. Is that really the only, what are your other reasoning? Is that the only one?
There's two big pieces of it. The environmental aspect is why I'm fighting it immediately, because once you've built these big, huge things, they don't go away, right? That's if they're guzzling up, they're using, generators. They're not on the grid exactly. They're using hundreds of thousands or millions of gallons of water a day in an aquifer that's already low, right? Like I just think this is catastrophic to us.
So the water issue with it is so it's a closed loop system.
It can be closed loop, but it doesn't have to.
Most are closed loop systems, and it turns into steam. It goes in the atmosphere, and then it comes back down to the aquifer.
So a couple things there. One is that closed loop is much better than not. That's certainly true.
Yeah.
Most of the data centers though that are being built are not closed loop. I mean that's the industry thing that they say they can do. They can do closed loop and it reduces it a lot.
Well, even if it's not, I mean,
but that's why part of the model ordinances that I'm writing is to just require that. That's all. Just say you have to do it. Don't let them say that they tried and they couldn't do it and now we're stuck. So that's the first one. The other piece though on the water is that when you boil off water, that's much different than a farmer spraying it and going in the field and sinking right back down, right? Boiling off water, especially right next to the Gulf, it can get taken out into the Gulf and immediately it's in Maine, right? And like it's not our water anymore. So that's just a big piece we need to think about. The environmental aspects are kind of why I think we should fight them right now as far as making sure that they don't stamp down here. There's a next generation of data centers coming, quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, all sorts of stuff that's like got new architectures. It's just how it's built. Quantum is 90% cheaper. It's 90% less electricity, 90% less water. It's just a different whole design on computers. Let's build those, right? The Mag Lab's working on that. Florida State, FAMU, they're all working on that. Let's invest in those people and then build a quantum data center here when that's not going to destroy our way of life as far as the environmental and, on the ground piece of it. Then you've got all the economic aspects. You've still got, that's the same no matter what kind of data center you build. The AI is still going to take jobs. It's still going to change our kind of, the truth of the world as far as what people think is happening and what's going on. And that's a separate problem. But so I'm against the data centers right now for the physical size and scale and scope of what they are. And I hope that that gives us the 2 to 4 years to basically build in the governance on the AI economic layer and social layer so that when we get new data centers coming in, we can actually govern those and control it. AI is not going away. We need to control it the same way as electricity. We didn't ban electricity because it's dangerous, and it is. If you touch a wire, you can die. We said you got to have power stations and substations and make it so that my 6-year-old can plug in his thing into the wall and I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
Right? We just govern it, right? We just make it that the AI in its worst cases has to have rules and regulations. And in some cases, AI can be used in open source. Kind of everybody can use it because it's that AI is not so dangerous. And again, I can go into the details on some of that. But
yeah, I know. Like one of the conversations I just had with somebody recently when they were trying to, they might have gotten it from a podcast themselves. It was a really close friend of mine, and I was just saying to him, I was like, dude, AI is it's going to take over everything. And like, I'm not going to have a job anymore once it's all said and done. And then he was like, I kind of look at it like the automobile. The automobile came out. When the automobile came out, now we have cars. And then it was like, so that meant that, New York City, Chicago, all these big cities now just lost a lot of the workforce when the car came out. And I was like, what? And he goes, well, everything was horse and buggy. He goes, so you literally had guys, their job was to go out and clean
take
up
care of the horses,
poop
right.
all the time, get it off the street and everything like that. He goes, and then they lost their job because, hey, we no longer have horses. Now we have cars. But it fixes itself because now these guys went out and they became mechanics.
Right.
So like, I don't think that, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, but so many people right now are on this kick with like, AI is the devil, AI is bad, AI, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's just, you're having to adapt to something that's new in life that does make life easier in a lot of different ways as well. It does get rid of a lot of jobs, but there's more jobs that can be.
Here's the thing. AI is going to make computers exponentially easier, right? Soon you'll be able to talk to your phone and say, I need to do this.
I already am.
And it already kind of happens, but it'll be even more where basically an app pops up on your phone. Like it's built a custom app for you for that task that you need to do, and boom, it's all there, right? It'll be so easy. It's sort of, going to be feel different than it does now. That's going to happen with industries, with businesses too. So all of a sudden, right, what you needed 10 people to do, you maybe need one person or no people to do, depending on the task. AI is not going to take jobs in the normal sense of like your whole job is just gone. It's going to take tasks, one by one, every task you do every day. All those things on your list that you check off and say, okay, I replied to that email. I got that report done. I downloaded that data and analyzed it. I built the marketing plan for that, whatever it is, right? People do all sorts of different jobs. That's what's going to go away, is each of those little tasks. At some point, businesses make a rational decision and go, okay, I don't need 10 people doing all that anymore. I need 3 people doing this very specific set of work that only humans can do, right? Or that I want humans to do. So the jobs aren't going away, but we are certainly at peak human. So we're at peak human right now. We are never going to need more humans doing human things tomorrow than we do today, right? Like that is we are on the downward side of that slope, which means that we will have unemployment in a different way, right? It's right now we treat unemployment like a personal fault. You should go get a new job. Why aren't you having got a job, right? And that's the big difference. As soon it might be 5%, it might be 10%, it might be 40%. We don't know, right, what that amount is going to be. So I think we should get prepped and ready because we know it's going to be 5 or 10%. Like we just know that that's the amount of jobs are going to get hit. Now those jobs might come back in some way in 10 years as the economy really matures into AI and we kind of, but that's going to be catastrophic for a ton of people right now, right? Yeah. That's the big difference. And so I want to make sure that as AI integrates in, people's lives don't collapse, right? That we have some safety nets here that are a little bit different than we've had before. Because in Florida, like, we don't have unemployment insurance for very much, right? It's $2,500, I think, over 10 weeks or something. That's it. Like, that's the max you can get. Well, that's not helping you when your job industry doesn't exist anymore, right? When there just aren't jobs in your sector and you're 58 years old.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to go get retrained for a new job. There's tons of kids coming out also looking for work that are young and know how to manage agents and all sorts of things, right? It's just those people are going to get stuck, and we need to be very careful with that and make sure that it's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong. They had a good career. They did it right, right? I don't want to feel like we're punishing people for a new technology coming out and eating up their work that they used to do and treating that like a punishment, right? That you should have done something different. Like, that is not fair. So that's really where I come from on the job thing. And I think the jobs have a lot of, there's so many different ways to think about how the next generation of jobs is going to become. But I'm excited about micro entrepreneurship. If the big companies can lay off a bunch of people, then you can run a business without needing a lot of people, right? It's already happening. We're already seeing it. I'm running a political campaign that has very few staff comparatively because I use AI all the time on it, right? I use AI as a tool to help us research, to help us learn things, to help us understand what we're dealing with, but also to help us, just kind of figure out the bolts and nuts of the campaign that we need to do. And if I can do that on my campaign with 2 kids and I'm kind of just basically building custom software with AI, then people can build malicious things. Then companies can wrap up a lot of workers into a lot of that software. Like, it's just a whole different thing that we haven't quite touched yet, but is right here. The tech is here. Now it's the question of when does it integrate into the economy?
So first 100 days, you're going to focus on that regulation for AI and the data centers and healthcare.
I think those are the big pieces on the legislative front. On the accountability front, I think we need to investigate what's gone on at the DOJ and at the military. If the Trump folks have put in unqualified people, have broken laws on immigration and on DOJ and the FBI and military, then I think we need to know about that and catalog them. I'm not naive in thinking that, the legislature is going to do some crazy thing to Trump that way. I'm not here, but I think we need to know if illegal actions have gone on, which I think they have. We should investigate and find out what those are and basically catalog that so that we can deal with it. Because I'm tired of people in the federal government just getting slapped on the wrist and a resignation when they've done some really bad stuff. Yeah. And that's on both parties, right? We see it all the time where just somebody does something really awful and the outcome is nothing, right? The outcome is they get to resign and go be on the board of another big Fortune 500 company. And I just think that's wrong. I want to see some actual response with teeth to people who've broken the law, who've stolen things, who have gone way out of their bounds in their role. I think we need to see jail time on a lot of this stuff that's happened, but I don't want it to turn into just a, spiraling investigation to nowhere. And that's why I'm really focused on fixing the ones that are the problem, right? Which is FBI, DOJ, and military. Those are the 3 that if we don't fix those, I don't really care what else you do.
I have zero faith in how most of these investigations that have come out of Washington have been handled. I mean, look at the Epstein list.
Right.
We literally got pedophiles out there that
and that's what
did all this
like
shit,
that.
and then you got, I'll fucking say it. I don't care. Like, you got the president of the United States that won't release. He's helping out his friends.
Right.
Like, I mean,
I agree.
If there's more to it, then tell me. But as of right now, the way that it looks is we don't give a shit.
But
like, we're just going to do.
That's what I mean, is because, why hasn't the FBI and DOJ put out all the documents, right? Like, that was the law.
Yeah.
That law was signed.
I'm
that
laughing my ass off because MAGA Republicans, I'm a Republican. I'm not a MAGA Republican, right? Like, America's always been great.
Right.
Always will be great. Right. We had some setbacks? Yeah. Dude, Joe Biden was a nerd.
Right.
Like, he couldn't walk from here to there without, and but my issue is that, we sit there, we have so many, the problem that we're having in the nation, in my opinion, being a 35, male with, a wife and kids, so the way that my brain, the problem right now is we have too many people that are getting behind people and standing behind them through anything and just saying, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. He's great. He's great. He's great.
Right.
And even for the other side, not just my side. Right. And it's like accountability needs to be taken. And I think you're right. Like, right now, investigations going on in Washington are jail time, baby.
Right.
Like you're going to
I don't
prison.
want the slap on the wrist,
Yeah.
let you resign in shame and then go off and live in a mansion for the rest of your life and be just fine. And the Epstein stuff, I think, is a perfect example.
No, because
of
it doesn't happen that way for normal people.
Right. No, they come down on us on the smallest infractions they didn't check off the box correctly on the form. You had some weed in your car, whatever it is, right? Boom. It's full scale, everything. Whereas
and right then and there.
Right. Then
There's
and there.
no go home and think about it. And then you're guilty until you're proven innocent.
Right. Oh, and you don't have much money for a good lawyer, then the public defender. And now you're in, it's the whole thing. So I'm very much in the side of, I don't have a lot of sympathy for super wealthy people that are somehow connected to Epstein and haven't had it. My plan would be to have it be more of a truth and reconciliation committee. I mean, I think we need a big thing that goes through that people sit down and you prove to me why you're not guilty in front of that committee, right?
Yeah.
Not that committee is going to arrest people directly, but if your name's on that flight log, if you've been emailing with the man, then I want to see what you really did. What did he do why were you so enthusiastic about wanting to work with him and be involved with him? Because there's a lot of smart people out there that you could go get information from. Oh, you all happen to be around this one guy, but it's not about the pedophile stuff. That wasn't what you were doing.
Somebody said that the other day. They were like, just because they were on the list doesn't mean that they did anything wrong. So investigate it,
exactly.
guy.
That's what I'm saying. Then prove that.
Like,
then prove it.
Then
right?
prove it. Like what the heck? It's like this stuff right now, and I know I'm getting off topic. Like Tristan and Andrew Tate, like these guys. Yeah. Like this guy, Tristan, the one brother, literally looks into the camera not too long ago in a podcast, and he's like, I'm gonna go back to Britain. I'm gonna go knock on the door, and I'm gonna go talk to the police there and be like, hey, I heard you have an investigation. Come on, tell me what you. And now they're like, we don't want to get extradited back to Britain. You just said a couple of weeks ago, hey, I'm gonna go back there and I'm gonna confront you about it. Go back and prove you're innocent.
Right.
If you're so innocent. However, I don't agree with that whole thing because there's a lot of weird stuff with that.
I mean, that one's,
but it's just an example.
No, it's got a thing of basically the difference of, the influencer podcast circuit and the real world of actual laws and what's going on. And I think that we've let a lot of people get away with a lot. I mean, clearly going back a long time, I don't think this is any one party or one person or one thing. This is a system, right, that was built to protect this class of people. And I want to make sure that system starts not protecting that class of people. I want it to protect and, attack everybody equally, right? If you've done something wrong, you should get prosecuted for that, right? Like it's the rule of law, right? That's it, regardless of how much money you have. But the idea that the super wealthy, which I think we both agree, basically there's no chance any of them go to jail almost ever, right? Epstein was the crazy anomaly that he was arrested and actually prosecuted for it.
I just think that's because he got thrown under the bus by a lot of his buddies.
Well, I think so too. And Maxwell, the same thing. She's the only one arrested. All of these rich men who actually were on the island, who flew with him, who did all this stuff over years. One woman's in jail. Now I'm glad she's in jail. She needs to be in jail. But that's crazy to me that you have all these names. I mean, just so anyway, that's the stuff I'm talking about, is that we need to make sure that the DOJ and FBI are not corrupted, right? That they have actual people in them that care about the rule of law and they care about executing on Congress's laws, not just protecting the president of either party, right? This is about, which I don't think we had that big of a problem with before Trump, right? Before this Trump administration specifically, of, again, FBI being sort of a partisan office. That's at least not how I saw that agency at all. And I don't think most Americans do either. We don't want an FBI that's partisan. That's awful. That is just, you're going to start doing things and turning into a surveillance police state, which is another thing we can get into on those data centers and what they're for. But
I've got some questions on that. So we spend a lot of time on. Let's get back to the questions. I know I want to talk about budget priorities. So if you had to make one major federal spending cut, one major investment, what would they be and why?
Start with the investment. On the investment side, I would invest in quantum computing. I think it's the biggest thing that's going to change the next decade, the next 20, 30, 40 years, is can we get quantum computing right? And with that, can we get some kind of energy enhancement, in that research of things like either nuclear or cold fusion or better solar panels? We need to do something different than just burning gas. I mean, burning gas is a good base stop that it works. It's solid. We know how to do it, but it's not forever. and it's not that efficient, right? And if we're talking about the scale of power we're going to need for the robots economy and for the electric cars at scale and all that, we need to invest in real modern ways to have energy sources. So I think
sounds like everything's going to be going nuclear.
So nuclear is a big one. They're building small and medium reactors right now to power literally the data centers themselves. Like that's what they're for. And so I think we need to be open to that conversation. I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I'm not just go run with it, but I mean, technology's improved a lot in the last 50 years, and we need to be investing in this. It's crazy to say we have this source of energy that's so clean and so pure and so good, and it does have problems with the waste and with all this. So let's solve those, right? Let's invest in figuring that out. So that's one. As far as the cuts go, it's hard because there's cuts that are just programs I don't agree with, right? And then
let me give you an example of just like because. One of their questions was like, let's talk about it. So we got the United States is over 36 trillion in debt. Defense spending is roughly 900 billion. Homeland Security, 100 billion. Education, 80 billion. Justice, 40 billion. You know, I mean, that's before we even start to get into foreign aid or anything like that. I mean, just based on that, I think defense budget we're good on. Maybe even go a little bit higher on defense. But I mean, that it kind of brings me back. I mean, are you for getting rid of the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education?
No, I'm not for getting rid of it in the sense of like the work it did is still important. Like the Department of Education did a lot to basically review schools to figure out what works well in schools, right? The controversial stuff about Department of Education, we can debate on that. But the core of it, right? Most of what it did was silent. It was reviewing all the test results from all the kids. It was making sure that teachers got accredited. It was making sure that IEP, like individualized learning plans, got approved and were actually running and got funding. It was making sure that teacher certifications and that, the AP classes lined up with these. Like they did a lot of just infrastructure stuff, right? Around the federal.
You don't think that that's
education
something
policy.
though that the states can just take over?
No, I mean they can, but the problem is that who's going to review then Texas and Florida and New York and Mississippi?
You're just talking about standard wise,
right? Like they would take all that data from the states, compile it up, and then give us the rankings and see what worked standard. And see what was good. So that is a federal job, right? Like that. There's no one state that's going to spend that much money to review all the other states and see if, again, is Michigan doing something clever that's working really well? We should all know about and we should all do it, right? That kind of thing. So I want the states to still control education as far as the day-to-day policy of it goes. But I think there's a place for the federal government to be kind of clear, a warehouse for that, like taking all that data and information, trying to understand it and make sure also that if a state is doing something wrong, right, if they're not providing equal education to people, if they're not abiding by the laws of the road, we do need a federal government to come in and say, hey, state, you have to do this, right? Otherwise, then the states can just say, well, we don't really care about laws, right? We'll just do whatever we want because there's no way for you to force us to do that. So I want to make sure that we have a federal government that's evenly applying and also, documenting and understanding where our kids are at, where our teachers are at, what needs to be better, what needs to be cut, what are the wasteful things, right, that don't need to be doing anymore. We're going to have to deal with that.
The Department of Education, where it sits right now, is okay?
Well, I don't know where it sits right now. Since Doge cuts, they cut a lot of this stuff. And so I would want to get up there and look at that as far as before answering you on which pieces I would keep or not.
Well,
I think at a fundamental
I didn't know if you had
idea,
anything in mind.
No, I think at a fundamental idea, like we need a federal education program that is compiling all the state results and that is divvying that out and is doing that research and understanding what's working for our kids and what's not, and putting, again, a floor of like, every child gets this at least level of education. You can go bigger, counties and states can add more, can do that, but we need to have a standard. Otherwise, some states could just decide to just not invest in certain populations, certain people, or anything, right? They can just say, well, we're going to all go private school, right? And that's that. So we want to make sure that we have some ability to protect people in states where the states aren't doing a good job. But I don't want to give a direct answer on like what exactly I would cut, because I think right now the Department of Education has been cut so much that like I don't really know what's functional in it right now. I'm hearing some people say that it's almost like USAID, like it's gone. Right? It's not really functional anymore at all. And other people say no, it's pretty much doing all the normal stuff it did. It's just they cut some of the big stuff on the top lines and doing that. So I don't know. I'd have to look at that a little bit more before making direct comments. But there is a place for the federal government in education, yes. Whether you call that Department of Education or whether you call that something else, I don't really care.
Okay. All right. Next question. What is the biggest issue facing Northwest Florida that Washington isn't paying enough attention to now?
Yeah. So besides data centers, which I think is a big one, and we'll get back to that in a little bit. I think the aquifer and our water is a huge one that we haven't really dealt with. I'm hearing from people all over the district that wells are sputtering. We're starting to see, I was talking with a nursery up in off 20, and they were saying how, they're on their emergency well that was dug 80 years ago that they've never used in 80 years. But the main well is dry, right? Like we're starting to see the warning signs, right? The red lights start to flicker and say, hey, this is a problem. We're hearing from people in different rural communities that are talking about their wells having PFAS in them, right? Like they're dirty, so you can't drink out of them. They're having to Brita filter their wells. And that's directly related to the fact that the water table is so low, right, underneath us. And so it's, it's not, if there's some chemicals in it and you have less water, then those are more potent on that one, on the one draw. Whereas if they're full, they're just less parts per million kind of thing. So that's the big one that I think I would concentrate on as sort of a hidden thing that I don't think most people are talking about, and we should, which is so many of our communities come off of wells here. And we're having either dirty and dangerous wells or no water coming out of those wells. And that's going to be catastrophic for our farmers, for our agriculture, but also just for normal people and businesses and everything as we're trying to figure this out. Wakulla Springs doesn't have glass bottom boats anymore, right? They don't run them maybe a couple times a year because it's just too dirty. It just doesn't have, the water's not clear anymore. That's a problem I would focus on for us.
I think as far as the water goes, it's just like a cycle. So I'll give you a perfect example of water. Like up off of Highway 20. So I lived up off of Highway 20 for a little while off of a road called River Pond Road. They called it that because there were a lot of different ponds that were around there, and then there'd be a river that would connect all of them. But when I lived there, it was completely dry. It was like a desert.
Right.
This was about 15 years ago.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, it was completely dry. It was like a desert. And it was probably like I came back from the military and I drove past out there near the same place, and now it's freaking water everywhere. And it's like,
and so that's normal.
What the freak? So I just think that it's more of a cycle thing.
And I thought that too, because I grew up around here and I remember the lakes at times would kind of all
like,
dry out all of
the
a sudden, especially during the middle of summer when like we don't have,
well, no, I'm talking about like years,
but
no
here's,
water.
Right, but here's the thing is that what started scaring me is talking to, again, a lot of the farmers and the folks who own businesses who are saying that, again, in 80 years, they've never had to do the things they're doing now. So clearly whatever was going on in the 90s or in the 80s that we've dealt with before historically, not
so
a lot.
What do you think it is that's caused it?
So I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that I think we need to be investigating it and figuring out what is going on, and not in an environmentalism do-gooder sense, but in like where is the water? What is happening to it? How extreme is this, right? Is this different than what we've seen before? If it's not, and it's just a cycle, then let's figure that out. But that also means that some counties and cities are going to need some federal resources to bring in water, because if it's dry, it's dry. It doesn't matter at that point why. It's like it's not working. And so all of a sudden we have to have tanker trucks coming in and filling up water, which we do some, but that at scale, even if it only lasts a couple more years, is a crisis of like massive proportion. We saw Apalachicola just kind of lost their water filtration thing and they almost collapsed. I mean, it was people bringing in water bottles by the truck all the time trying to figure this out because they didn't have a representative who was actually fighting for them and trying to bring in things and get this dealt with. So that's what I would focus on as far as just a local issue that's actually here that I think is really impactful and is also a big health and economic threat that no one's talking about.
What one promise are you making today to voters that they can hold you accountable for before the next election?
I promise to do everything in my power but seriously, to protect us from what's coming on AI.
If somebody was going to look before the next election,
right?
They're like, hey, what did he do? What are one of those things that you're going to make sure that happens that you can be held accountable for before the next election?
Yeah, I'd say the the healthcare piece and the data center ban, like just defining them, right?
Yeah.
Starting it, because we can't fight 3,000 counties one at a time.
Yeah.
And so that'd be the big first one, is to make sure that these big, ugly, crazy, huge data centers are not built out, and that we've figured out some way on the healthcare so that when you lose your job, your kid doesn't lose their doctor. Those are the two things I'll fight for as much as possible. DC is a crazy beast, and I can't guarantee I'll get it done, but I can guarantee that's what I'll be, if I can get those two things done up there in the first 2 years, I'll feel good.
Let's move on to H-2B workers.
Yeah.
So many hotels, restaurants, and seasonal businesses in Northwest Florida rely on H-2B guest workers.
Yep.
Because they say they cannot find enough local workers.
Mm-hmm.
You support expanding the H-2B visa programs, or keeping it the same, or reducing it?
So I support expanding them as long as there's need. I mean, if we really need workers and we really can't find people, and there really are foreign workers ready to do those jobs, then okay, right? That's a nice way to supplement our workforce here that can't or won't do the job, whatever that is. But I'm not okay with it just being, let's open it up and bring in a bunch of foreign workers and depress the American wages and take jobs. So I think there needs to be much stricter requirements on when you can get an H-1B, right? That it can't just be the business wants some people and so they apply for it and get 30 people over here.
Well, and that's the thing. We
need to have much stricter rules on how you apply for it, what the monitoring is. But if we can prove that we need seasonal workers for tourists or for agriculture or for whatever, then bring them in. That's fine.
Yeah.
But we have to show that Americans won't take those jobs first, and that the pay is you can't say, Americans won't do dishwashing, but we only pay $4 an hour. And, it's like,
that's
well, of course
like,
they won't, right?
Yeah.
You pay $15, $20 an hour. I got a lot of friends. I've done dishwashing for that. You know what I mean? Like people will do tough work as long as you pay them a dignity wage,
yes,
right?
That's kind of like where I was going with this before. I got made fun of when I ran for office, just through some stuff that I've seen, where it was like, I got hit because it was like, hey, I believe that, our economy, the people that live here, they deserve more than just tourist industry. If when your kid graduates high school, and they go get a job, if they're not going to college and they're not going in the military, they're here, right. What are they going to go do? Right. And I made the comment. I said, they're going to be out there slinging beer on the beach. They're going to be out there bussing tables. Right. They're going to be out there doing it. There's not saying anything's wrong with those jobs, but the thing is, I felt like we needed more here because those jobs don't pay a wage that you can survive on with how expensive things are. And for the most part, better jobs. But my thing here with H-2B workers is that, I've had several people on where we've talked about this, and it's been like, oh, well, yeah, a lot of these companies need those H-2B workers. But then I think of it, I'm like, no, they don't. Because we have enough people. We just said a second ago that we have enough people here to fill those jobs. They just don't want to do them. Right. Why don't they want to do them? Because it doesn't pay. Right. It's not that they don't want to do work. Yeah. It's that they're not going to do that for $6 an hour. Yeah. And especially when a lot of those jobs are paying sub-minimum wage, they're, again, once you have an illegal workforce, or a workforce that's illegal anyway, right, that doesn't have good documentation, that's not fully in the system, then it's so much easier to be like, we just paying everybody cash out back, right? And we all know that people do that, right? Yep. It happens. Yep. Well, of course, no American's going to do that because you're not getting Social Security, you're not getting benefits, you're not getting anything else. So make sure that those jobs are real jobs first before we just go offer them to foreign workers. But if there are real industries where it's seasonal, where we just don't have enough physical people. I agree with you. If we absolutely have to have it, then have it. Yeah. It's a good way of making sure. Because right now we're second in the country. So the national standard is 66,000 of those visas a year. Uh-huh. And Florida is the second largest with 21,500. So, right. No, we've got a lot of immigrants here. I mean, it's a big thing, and 99.9 of them are doing jobs that we asked them to come over here and do. Right? Like it's not a mainly because this is one of those things. You're kind of like the first candidate that I've talked to that's pretty open about this conversation. So I'll ask you this: if a business knowingly hires undocumented workers, should the penalties against that employer become significantly tougher? And when I say significantly tougher, kind of like what we were going on earlier, do you believe that it should be criminal or civil? So, should it be done through fines, or should it actually be done by this is a criminal thing? Right. I think the repeat offense becomes criminal.
Right. If we're making the transition on day one, no, it shouldn't be criminal because so many businesses do it, right? Because we haven't enforced it and we haven't dealt with it. So I think the initial thing, the first 2 or 5 years, whatever you want to do, should be a civil infraction. And, if you get hit more than once, then it becomes criminal. After that, right, then we can transition into a criminal phase because we have enough. But the other piece of this is we have to make sure that those people who are the undocumented, illegal, whatever you want to call them, workers, have access to a way to get on legal status. I mean, that's one of the biggest flaws in this whole immigration sort of discussion, right? Is that it's either self-deportation or ICE roundup, right? Those are the 2 ways that you have to leave the country. But the job you were doing, if you were here for a long time, still needs to be done. And we're not talking about the business at all, right? The business owners who have all these people employed right now and clearly know that they don't have documentation.
We'll get on that because I think
they're dealing with it. So I just think that we need to have enforcement. Absolutely. It's a huge problem that we don't enforce this, and we need to enforce it on the business side 100%. But we need to make sure that the businesses aren't attacked for something where they were just doing what everybody kind of said to do and everybody was sort of doing for decades, right? I don't want to get a business owner in trouble because they hired some dishwashers and now all of a sudden we're like, that's illegal, and we knock them out from under the knees, right? We need to make sure that they're able to transition that. But that requires letting those people transition too into legal status of some kind and not just being criminals that have to go back to, some awful country where they don't have a home because they've been here for 10 years.
I understand your point of view on it. So we're going to get into, this kind of goes into that HR 4393, the Dignity Act.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with the basics of it, but if you want to kind of give me your recap on it, just to make sure we're talking about the same piece.
The Dignity Act, stronger border security, mandatory nationwide E-Verify, faster legal immigration processing. Right. So basically it's a pathway to legal status, right?
Right.
For certain undocumented immigrants who pass background checks.
Right.
Pay restitution and fees and remain in good legal standing. If that bill, 4393, came before you while you sit in Congress, would you vote yes or no for it?
Overall, it sounds pretty good. I haven't gotten into every detail of it, so I don't want to just say absolutely. I would co-sponsor it, but that's the type of framework I would want, right?
So
which is both things.
I think where you're going to differ from the other candidates I've had on based on party affiliation has to do with the amnesty portion of it.
Right.
It's basically getting amnesty to somebody who came here illegally.
Right. But the Republicans have been for that until Trump. We did it under Reagan. We did it under Bush. We've done amnesty, and it didn't destroy the country. This is only a problem because Donald Trump has decided that piece of it is not good anymore, even though we've done that for generations and it's worked fine, right? Of course you have to give amnesty. There's no other way to do it unless you want to round up everybody and take them out and rip apart families and do what Trump's doing. I mean, so if you like this, if you think this is a great way to deal with immigration, which is having ICE go around in unmarked, vehicles and unmarked uniforms and round people up and grab them and maybe send them to a country they're from, maybe not, then that's your call. I don't think that's a great way to do it, right? I think that having something like this would be a much better way to do it so that we can actually understand who's in here, keep the good people who are doing jobs that we need and make sure that they're good. And the folks that aren't, who don't pass the background check, who've had criminal record, of course they go, right? Like that's fine. No one's fighting for criminals to stay in America, right? We're fighting for people who are Americans, who have done the right thing, who did what they were supposed to do, and maybe they don't have a paperwork, a checkbox somewhere. Maybe they don't have some piece of the puzzle that they needed. But they have kids here and they've got a family here. They've been here a long time. They're doing work that Americans clearly don't want to do. I think that's the most American thing, right? My family's from overseas. Most people's families here came from somewhere else. That's how America works, right? Like we've always had the problem and we say, oh, the current immigration batch is the bad ones, right? Every time we did it with the Irish, we've done it with with Hispanic folks, we've done it with Asian folks, we've done it with everybody. This one's no different, but it's just that we have a bigger surveillance state and a harsher military response or government enforcement response to it. So I just think that the idea of rounding up everybody and mass deportations is the most horrifically bad way to do that, to solve that problem, which is a real problem that you could think of. The better way is dealing with it, hiring more judges, making sure we vet everybody, making sure that we let people get on the legal status pathway, and then welcoming them into the country because they live here and they've been our neighbors already, right? They're already part of our country. I'm okay with some things in that of putting rules down and language requirements. And also, we can set the boundaries of what an American citizen or a natural resident or a legal resident needs to have. That's fine. But there has to be a pathway to get there, right? We can't right now. There's no real good pathway to even get on that list. It's immensely complicated and takes forever. So That's how I look at that, just sort of as a issue, right? As an idea.
So you think that the ICE issues where they're rounding up illegal immigrants that came here illegally and taking them back to their country or
some country.
wherever, you're not for that. You think that
no, I think it's a incompetent way to deal with a big real problem, right? We do have a problem, but the response to that is just, it's like throwing the ball the wrong way on the court. Right? It's the wrong play on this to solve it. And I also want to push back and say, like, are they arresting some people who don't have documentation? Absolutely. Are they also arresting American citizens? Absolutely. Are they also killing American citizens? Absolutely. Are they also, causing enormous economic damage to parts of towns where they are in and where they're rounding people up, and those businesses not being able to not just have employees but customers, right, coming in? I mean, the amount of anxiety and just stress that I hear from people in Tallahassee, that I hear from people in Panama City, that I hear about all across the country, right, is immense. I mean, we've got citizens in America looking at leaving the country because they're immigrants and they're feeling very harassed and feeling like they're not safe here anymore. That's horrific. That's awful. And we really have to think about what we're sending the signal to the next generation of Americans, to people who want to come here, people who strive to get to America. I mean, talk to people around the world in other countries, and it's the goal, right? It's the thing. You talk to people who are here, who worked really hard and crazy and slept in shipping boxes and all sorts of stuff to get around the globe and get here. Like, that process is immeasurably brave, right, to do that. And I want those people here. I want those good people here who are wanting to be Americans. And of course, if you don't meet that requirement, then get out, right? Then we no one's trying to bring in the folks who are trying to cause problems or who don't want to do that.
But they should go through the legal process.
Right, but we have to have a process, right? Right now, we're arresting people at courthouses who are going through the process, right? And they're arresting them right afterwards. We're arresting people at work sites who are standing, if you're in line at 2 p.m. at a construction site here in North Florida during the summer, you're not the criminal, right? You're standing in line to get some water in between your construction break. That's not a criminal, right? That is somebody that is doing work that we need in hot weather. And then the ICE agents come and arrest them because it's easy, because they're right there, right? That's the part that I'm saying is different than finding criminals and arresting criminals and saying that criminals are doing something bad. And the thing I've heard from folks who are on the Republican side, who are even MAGA folks who like agreed with the immigration idea, it's the morality of it that's the problem, right? They thought he was going to go after MS-13 and go after the big violent gangs. He didn't. They haven't, right? They've gone after the easy people to get because those are easy, and it's way less problematic for them than having a war, right? And having to go into apartment complexes with guns to get MS-13 because they will shoot back, right? Like, they're serious.
Yeah.
A guy at the work site isn't. So you go get him. And that's the piece that I think a lot of folks are realizing is just the heartlessness of it. It's like, there's no reason for that. That guy wasn't the problem. MS-13 is certainly a problem, right? We should go after them. We should get them.
I think it's, if you come here illegally, you're not going through the process though, and you do have a job like where you're working on it, and then they're getting government benefits too though. Like, they're getting money and benefits and stuff like that. If you're not an American citizen, I don't think you should be getting that. Like, and I do believe that, obviously we have the visa programs, stuff like that. We have ways for it to be legal. We do have people that intentionally go against the grain, though, that don't follow through those because it's like, whatever the reason is, and they don't do it.
Right.
And I believe, like, if you find out that somebody's been here for like a good while and they haven't even gone down to figure out what the process is, they haven't, and you're getting government benefits, and you're here illegally, you're a criminal in my book.
Right.
Because,
well, I think the government benefits thing is different. And I think that's a bit of a debate because there are some people who, of course, you can find who are like scammers, right? And so they go and find every paperwork thing they can fill out and do that, whether you're a citizen or not a citizen. There's people who that's how their mind works. It's just like they see the flaws in the system and they go and abuse it. I personally, after talking to many immigrants and many people who work in like immigration attorney type people, have not heard anybody saying that there's some big pot of money out there that's funding to these folks in any massive way, right? Of course, are there some that can fill out the paperwork and scam something or get some,
I think
child care benefit?
The media has a lot to do with some of this stuff.
Because it feels...
Because you find two people that do it and it's like, thousands of people are doing it. And it's like, okay, hold on.
Right. Like, it's not that many. And I know too many that are sleeping in trailers to pretend like they're getting some big benefit here, right? Even if they're getting some food stamps somehow, or they're getting some very, minor piece of government help in some way. I think that most of that. No, I get it. I get it, and that's what I'm saying. Like, let's look at it, right? Let's look at it and figure it out.
It's a difference between somebody. They stole a pack of gum, and then you got somebody that's like, well, I stole an iPod,
right?
It's
versus
kind of like,
I stole the bread for my kids. Like, those are all crimes.
All of them are crimes.
But should they be punished the same way, right? I don't know, right? That's where I think that you can have some heart in this and not just say that it's yes, you did something and it is illegal, and so you should be deported back to Guatemala with your kids when you left there because of gang violence that was horrific and, unlivable, when here all you were doing was sleeping on your friend's couch and trying to work, right? I don't think that's a fair trade for us not having an option, right? We don't have a way for those people to get in line and to do it. And even the ones who did, we arrested them at the courthouses.
Well, I think the way in which it was done by the media too was like every single person that was coming across the border is a rapist, murderer.
Right. And
it's kind of like, well, I mean, I get it. There's a lot that are in there. There's a lot. I mean, we had during the Biden administration, over 380 people that were on our terrorist watch list were coming across the southern border.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was a problem. Like, the Democrats seem to admit that, like, the immigration was a problem. I don't think it was just caused by... I don't think it's as big of a problem now. It's down by 95%.
Right.
I mean, he's definitely, been able to close the border, I guess.
Shut down the border,
And I think that's something that Democrats honestly need to look at, which is, I think Democrats get stuck a lot in the policy process. So we're like, no, we can't do that because, there's 8 things that should happen. In a perfect world, Congress should pass legislation, right? Like, this is how we should do it. We should do this. But in a crisis, sometimes you have to make actions, right? You have to do things. And I think Democrats got too stuck on the process of it and less on the outcomes. So by the time immigration became a full-fledged, blown, huge problem where everybody could watch and see immigrants around and see people here who didn't speak English, right? Who were in the back workers at restaurants and who were doing all this, all of a sudden, we had no process, and the Democrats were stuck on the paperwork side of the whole thing and not the actual outcomes, which are crime, jobs, money, public dollars going somewhere. And we need to get back to that. And so I think what Trump did at the border itself, and if that's true that he's effectively closed it, let's look at what he did and how he did that, right? And make sure that we can duplicate some of that and keep that going so that we can control the border and make sure that we have that so it's not just an open thing. But once they're here, right, that is absolutely under our control, right? That is not something where you're hoping that a defensive line out in the desert in Mexico, right, is going to do this. Once they're here, okay, now it is our job, right? Now we have to do this, and we have to figure out, what do we do? Do we throw them back home because they technically shouldn't be here, or do we give some kind of process to let them stay? And that's a fundamental decision of what we do. I think that if somebody's here and they're fleeing somewhere and they're a hard worker and they're not doing anything criminal outside of getting here, I'd say let's give them a chance to stay. Let's monitor, let's have them check in, make sure that they're getting employed and they're doing something. If they're not, then that's a different discussion, right? Then we can have that. But right now, I don't see that as a problem. I think we've done this with, again, every immigrant group, including, my family's from Serbia. The Italians had it. The Jews have had it. The Asians have had it. Like, everybody who comes in at some point gets vilified as the next group who's going to ruin America. And then after 20 years, we're like, it was actually pretty cool. We're fine, right? And we're good. And our kids all go to school together and we have friends. So let's get through this a little bit more responsibly, I think, than just reacting and sending people off to countries that they're never from. Like that's the horrificness of it.
I respectfully disagree with you, but I get your point and I like it.
That's fair.
It's not like I just
and that's
I
good.
Can't, I can't. I agree with most of what you're saying, but I just can't get behind somebody coming here.
And I'm okay with that, right? That's saying we're not going to agree on everything.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. If you agreed with me on every single thing, I'd be a little weirded out, right? That probably shouldn't happen. Yeah, at the same time, that's the big thing I think as a culture that we need to understand is it's okay to disagree. Right.
But I will tell you that all the Republican, candidates, they disagree with HR 4393, which is the Dignity Act, because of the amnesty, and then that they just believe immediately, you committed a crime and leave. But I do appreciate you going through the reasoning behind it without. It's so funny, man, because we live in a country now to where if you disagree on something or if you don't agree, everybody wants to hurt each other.
Right.
And it's just like, dude, you can disagree on stuff and still have the conversation. I think that our country's missing that a lot.
Yeah.
Especially with the lines that we have, between conservative and liberal. And
I think so too. And I think the party lines are dissolving a lot. I think a lot of people are starting to break away and just realize like
Trump destroyed the Republican Party.
Trump showed them that these ideas of these long-term Republican values, right, of the government, whatever you want to think about it, isn't real, right? That you can change that. And the Democrats have had their own issues on that same thing of the party kind of changing what its priorities are. So I think there's a lot of people on both sides that are changing their minds right now. And I think it's great. I think it's the most patriotic thing you can do to decide what you believe.
Can't you agree though that like both parties have like this radical portion and then they have this, I just want to live in harmony and peace. But then it's just like, so it's like, For the Republicans, you have like the MAGA Republicans, right? Which is just like, dude, Trump could come out tomorrow. There could be video evidence of him committing, you fill in the blank, whatever crime you feel is the worst. And you're going to have people that are like, oh, well, they're going to take his side no matter what. And it's like, dude, I like Trump just because of like the pompous masculinity attitude. I like that sometimes. I agree with some of the things that he's done. But then again, the same reasons why I like him, it's the same reason why I don't like him. And so it's kind of like, and then, when you start to get into some of the things, and we haven't even gotten to the part, we haven't even gotten to the good parts yet. So, we're about to,
but I think at a really fundamental level, like I grew up in around Panama City here. Like my family's all from here in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of very liberal friends in Tallahassee, and I have a lot of really conservative friends and family out here in Panama City. Most of my family are much more likely to vote for any of the people you've had on this podcast besides me than me.
Yeah.
Right? They're probably not. They're MAGA supporters. They probably just aren't going to vote for me. I hope they will. But I'm not over here browbeating them, and I don't think that they're fascists. I don't think they're authoritarians. I don't think they hate the country, right? And I would hope that I don't think they're racist. I don't think that the same way that I hope they wouldn't think of me and our side as communists that are trying to overthrow. It's like all of these are fake, right? This isn't real. Now you could say that the national leadership in different ways does things differently, but the voters, right? The people on the ground actually making decisions. I don't have any idea that Republicans who voted for MAGA, for the most part, believe in every single thing that Trump is doing and that every single thing is right. Now, they might kind of feel that way because they have to publicly, because that's how the party culture has become. But I know they don't, right? I've talked to many Republicans. I've talked to many people running for office and elected officials, and every one of them says privately the 8 things they don't like about what Trump has done, even though publicly they have to say it's great all the time. That will break at some point, and people will say, hey, if there's a sane person that's a Democrat, I might go over and vote for him. And we're hearing that from people all the time that say, if the 7 Republicans in this race, if their pick doesn't get it, whoever that is for that person, they're like, then I'll vote for you. And I was like, that's great, right? Thank you much. Because
I have the rule of 5s. I've talked about this on the podcast before in the past. Actually, it's kind of funny. I watch episodes of me, and I don't remember ever doing the episodes because I jacked up. But so I've watched a couple of my episodes, and I love one of the questions that I've been asking to people, but I'm going to explain it to you. I play the rule of 5s on almost everything whenever I find myself getting negative about a certain individual, certain policy, anything. And what it is you give 5 reasons why, 5 reasons why not. So it's the same thing with people. 5 reasons why you don't like them, 5 reasons why you do like them. If you can't come up with 5 on each side, you need to go do your research more about that person. Because
you shouldn't make
if
an
you
opinion
go to
yet.
somebody like the Trump religion, the dude's a religion. If you go up to one of these freaking disciples of his and you say, give me 5 bad things about Trump, and it has happened to me where I've been talking to family members, I've been talking to people that are friends of mine, and they go, well, I can't think of 5 bad things. Really? You can't think of 5 bad things about 5 bad things that somebody's done. 5 bad ones.
In Obama's peak, I could easily give you 5 things that I did.
Exactly.
It's like because it wasn't a religion, right? It was a guy that I liked. He seemed pretty good. I agreed with a lot of his policies, and I didn't agree with all of his policies. I said, pretending these political parties are like like that you should identify with them as your core person. Like, no, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not a Democrat as like that's the only thing I see myself as, right? Like that's the difference. And I think most people don't see themselves as MAGA or Republican that way at that core level. Some do. There's definitely the groups on both sides that do, right? They do.
Bro.
But I think most voters in the middle don't. And it's not about policy. It's just about identification, right? They are whatever they think they are, and then they vote that way.
Yeah.
But the vote is the secondary thing, right? It's the thing that they kind of go, well, at this day and time, I'm gonna go this way now. And so we're seeing a lot of people changing their minds right now. And like I said, I think it's the most patriotic thing you can do is to look at all the candidates in a race and decide. And in this case, in just a weird historical moment, we haven't had a primary in here on either side in this district, this area in 40 years, right? It's been Democrats, but big name Democrats win. Republicans, big name Republicans win every time. We've never had a moment where we could actually, and for the first time, and this is almost unique in the whole country, just so people kind of get the perspective here. In District 2, there's no incumbent, and there's 7 or 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats, and none of us have any name ID. No one knows who anybody is, right? These aren't big state senators. These aren't county commissioners. These aren't mayors. These aren't big, executives of companies that everybody would know their name. It's a bunch of people, right, who all live here and all are running for office for different reasons. And we have a real opportunity here to make a choice that's better for us, right, as people. And I keep saying, elect better people. Just elect better people. I don't care what they are. I know really good Republicans. I know really good Democrats, but I also know really bad Republicans and really bad Democrats, right? Like, stop electing off party, start electing on person.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't agree with you on the.
That's fine.
but I do agree with what you just said. Yeah. So let's talk about government surveillance and privacy.
Great.
So we hit on AI.
Yeah.
Let's because I think we browbeated the crap out of AI. So let's just try to keep this one to a minimum. I'm for the Fourth Amendment.
Me too.
So searches and seizures, as far as that goes, so the Fourth Amendment protects Americans from unreasonable searches and seizures. If Congress votes on legislation expanding federal AI-powered surveillance capable of tracking the movements of law-abiding Americans, would you vote yes or no?
The devil's in the details. So overall, vote no. Just at a standard principle, I'd say no. I don't believe in surveillance as the default.
So a lot of people are talking about Flock right now. Now, it's actually kind of funny because I'm finding out that there's a lot of people that... Well, dude, we have a lot of boomers. We have a lot of freaking older people, and they just don't really understand how this stuff works.
Right.
It's kind of funny because the more podcasts that you listen to and you actually stop running your freaking mouth talking about what you think you know about AI and what you think you know about surveillance, because unless you've worked for the military or government in the government within the past half of a decade, right? About that time frame,
or even year. There's been a lot of changes in the last 16 months. It's like so.
You have not a clue of what you are talking about. I've been watching some of these guys who have some pages here locally. They're talking about Flock. They're talking about There's even been some national podcasts I've listened to, and they're talking about AI. And I listen to this stuff, and I'm like, dude, you guys are so far behind the curve. You guys are worried about LPRs that are able to pick up on, like, your car's make, model, and like all of that stuff, and you have no idea that stuff is like tied into probably about 600 different AI programs before it even gets anywhere. I think you know what I'm freaking talking about.
Right.
There are so many things that are out there, and there's so many things that are going to be voted on within the next couple of years. Yep. So when I ask the question to somebody that's older and they're not tech savvy, they're not getting it, right? And I ask them, I say, hey, I'm talking about all AI powered surveillance. Right. And then I lock Flock in that as a piece that's this big on a freaking yardstick. Right. And they're like, well, Flock and AI aren't the same thing. And it's like, whoa, dude, what are you talking about right now? So it's like, at what point in time do we start taking we start taking in consideration Americans' privacy when these things are being approved?
Yeah. So a great question, and I'm really glad the way you asked it, because a lot of people don't separate out the difference between the cameras are just the sensors. They're just the devices that can be used for really good, honorable law enforcement, crime-solving capabilities. And it can be used by ex-boyfriends to track people from other cities where they don't even live. Right. And they both happen, right?
Yeah.
So the key is governance. The key is that the sheriff's department right now, here's how they kind of work, is that the sheriff's department requests from the county $200,000 for technology in their budget. And the county either says yes or goes to the federal government and gets a grant, and $200,000 comes in, and boom, the sheriff's department gets it. Then the sheriff's department goes to conferences and gets wowed and wined and dined by all of the vendors on this stuff. And then they buy those contracts. So your county commission has no like governance of who has access to this video, when they used it, where they used it, why, all that stuff. So what we need to do is build that in at the federal level. And that's why I think the federal is the really important piece here. Because you don't want to deal with, again, 3,000 counties or 50 states all having to figure out what their parameters are. You want one baseline operation that says basically, okay, any private cameras that are installed and that feed to law enforcement have to have logs of exactly who accessed them, when they accessed them. There needs to be warrants involved, just like any other surveillance. It's like,
well, they're saying that they do. The issue that I have, yeah.
I mean,
the issue
like,
that I have with it is if I want to investigate myself and I want to be like, hey, I want to know where my car went all day long, they won't give it to you.
No, they won't give it to you. Right. But then
and it's like, well, hold on.
But then any police officer in some other state who's on the Flock system can type in and say, I want to see all Camrys with a white scratch down the side of them in Tallahassee or Panama City, and boom, your car pops up.
Well, it's not only that either.
So there's so much.
Dude.
Right.
They're linked in with Palantir, which is a huge thing.
Yep.
There are a couple of things that I know about it. I'm not going to say it for the sake of, I just don't want to.
Well, there's a lot of information here that's hard. It's assumed. It's sort of implied. It's like we can't prove it yet because, again, these things are secret. Most of these contracts we don't have. And the counties are just approving a budget item. So it's like you got to have the sheriff's department tell you exactly what they're involved in, exactly what tools they have access to. But I'll tell you here regionally, right, in our area, there's a real-time crime center at Florida State University. Right? That takes in all the cameras from around here. I'm not sure, honestly, if Panama City's in that system or not. My guess is they probably are, but I'll just because I don't think they have their own version of it. But Tallahassee's Regional Real-Time Crime Center is up by the Mag Lab in Tallahassee. You can go visit the building. That takes all the cameras and data from all around here and puts it into one source that every law enforcement agency in the area is able to access and use. Also, Florida State researchers are able to access and use, and they're writing reports on all of us, sending them out to people and saying, and publishing out, here's how you do surveillance.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of ethical concerns on that, but the big thing is that, well, who has access to all this video, to all this data of our private movements, of our private information? And I'll add one more layer that a lot of people, it's brand new, it's just kind of coming in, but it's basically Bluetooth sensors. So you know how if you want to pair your headphones to your Bluetooth, you don't have to do much, you just sort of say pair and it finds it on your phone. Well, those cameras and those other sensors on those poles have similar stuff, where they can't, depending on if they've installed them yet, I don't know. But they're able to then read it. So not only do they have a picture of your car and all around your car. So again, it's not like they have to have your license plate number. They can say, I want every truck that has a ladder hanging out of the back, right? And it'll find it. But it can also find out who's in your car. These are the 4 people that ride with you consistently. Here's these other people based on their cell phones in the car because it pings that Bluetooth. Then they move in the cameras down to be closer to your face so that they can find your face. And the company that has basically that Flock and some of these other ones process with your facial data has scraped all of the internet on facial data. And so they have your Instagram and your Facebook and your TikTok and all that stuff. They know your name and your face.
Your bank account, how much is in it, where was the last time you made a purchase, when was the last time you took it?
So all of a sudden, it's a surveillance net that would almost never be approved even for massive organized crime RICO cases, right? It's like they would never that would just be that's like having an agent at your house all the time, right? That exists in some crazy level, but not most of us. And the fact that it's accessible by any law enforcement officer in the country. That's the crazy part to me, is that any person who's on this system, on this Flock system or the other systems, again, there's 6 or 7 different operating systems, Palantir's one, right, of this stuff that consolidate all that data, because it's not Flock. Like Flock is one of the companies. But once that happens, then all of a sudden your law enforcement officers, your research community, I don't know how many people in Tallahassee have access to that, but I wish that the county commission did, and they don't. Right? The county commission can't tell you how many people have access to it, or if the data's sold, or if there's any variables on it. And we just need to build in a warrant process so that any police officer who requires it has to have a warrant that goes to a judge, just the same as any other thing. The weird part before used to be we're going to go and get the approval for the warrant and then do the surveillance. Now, basically, the surveillance has already been done, and we're asking if we can review it. It's the same thing. That's why I said I'm against surveillance if we don't have the governance around it. If we can get it right, though, where basically you have the best of the crime-fighting abilities, but stopping the abuses of it, then great. But I haven't seen that yet, and I haven't seen anybody even approaching it yet. Right here, I've seen that they keep it hidden. They do not disclose it. They don't tell me their settings and what they're doing. But I think that's also, it's so new. And we have to remember, there's not a conspiracy here. There's a economic convention circuit basically going on where these guys get wined and dined and they buy the stuff, and it is cool. And it is, I'm sure, helping fight a lot of crime. With that much surveillance, you better be helping fight crime, right? I mean, that's probably happening. But we need to look at the social impact of this, where you have these in poor and low income neighborhoods. You have them in black areas of town. You have them around different businesses and industries, right? And then some don't. And it's not a thing of a conspiracy. It's more just police putting cameras where they think crime is happening and making sure that that's being covered. But you can start to look at the maps and you can start to see very, very interesting patterns around where they're clustered, right? In areas of town, and then areas where they're not, where there's just no coverage of anybody's homes. You know, my uncle lives out in Chipley, and I was down there on a dirt road in his neighborhood way back in the woods, and there's a Flock camera off 231 going into his dirt road community. What the hell? Like, why does the police need to have a Flock camera out there monitoring everybody going in and out of this one community, right? They didn't need them on every house. They just needed it at the one entrance where you have to go in, right? And then there's hundreds of houses back there. Yeah. That's the part that really worries me, is that we're just going to live under this net and then assume it's always there. And that starts to change people's behavior. And it does. And people start to not do things, not associate with certain people, not talk to people.
Well, it's about the thing of like, you are having a profile that is built on you based on everything that you just said. And that's why we need data centers, right?
Right. And that's, a lot of people say these are surveillance factories. And I'm like, they are, but it's just one slice of what they're doing, right? But that is what prime. And let me give your listeners a little idea. When people say, especially the boomer generation, who kind of just, it's hard to grasp, but I think a lot of us do. Like, it's not like I'm talking to young people who get it, right? It's most young people don't see what the problem is with cameras, because our vision of camera is record, crime happens, the police find the crime, and then go back and look through 6 hours of video and find your truck driving by. Yeah. That's how we always did it. And that I don't think most people have a huge problem with, right? It's like benign video that's just on a hard drive somewhere. AI changes that. And that's the big why I say 16 months is the change. Even if you thought you knew what those cameras were doing, now they're running it all through AI all the time. And they're doing basically, you know, they're doing future forwarding thing. They're saying these cars all drive together at the same time. These cell phones are all in the same car, and this person committed a crime here, and this person did something here. Yep. And now let's go in here, and then they can put out orders to officers in our city and in other cities and say, hey, pull over these 3 cars.
Minority Report.
It is. It's like, and that's the thing, is that we have to govern that piece of it, because as soon as an officer in Minneapolis is able to say, hey, or in Atlanta, you know, saw a car driving south on this road, and then our cars are pulled over within 5 minutes down here. A law enforcement interaction in and of itself isn't a problem. It should be a very safe thing to have happen, but we know they're not, right? We know that law enforcement interactions, as soon as you get pulled over, I don't care who you are, that officer is basically the judge, jury, and executioner of that moment, right? Of what they perceive to happen and what's going on. I don't want our citizens just being randomly pulled over all the time, right? It's just, and the police don't want it either, a waste of their time. It means that a lot of the pulls they're doing are just for, again, an AI algorithm said they should do it, and they're not getting anything actually useful out of it, and it's a threat to the police as well. So to keep everybody safe, let's reduce the number of stops and use AI to actually discriminate down to when we pull somebody over, it's the right person, right, who we're actually looking for.
Yeah, but what about all these people that are getting pulled over right now that have nothing to do with what they're looking for?
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, is that right now that's the problem, is that the dragnet's too wide, right, and we're letting them just do whatever, and that's where the warrant comes in, because then they can say, okay, to get a warrant to actually interact with this person, to pull them over, you need to prove a little bit more than that some AI algorithm said that that's also a matching truck, right? That's the piece that I think we need to, and we can. Again, we've done it before. We've done it with video. We've done it with, does an email count if they download your emails versus going through your desk physically for papers, right? All that stuff. We've figured this out. We can do it again. We just need to take it seriously and have people in DC who get it, and actually writing those laws to actually help people and not to just do whatever the industry kind of wants.
So you would be a staunch supporter of protecting people's privacy.
Absolutely.
And finding ways
I would
to
default to
protect.
privacy and open when governed correctly, when they can show me why and how and where. That's how I look at it.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next one, and then there's a really good conversation. Let's talk about congressional war powers.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Man, I think it's because, so the past couple of people that I've had on, they've never served in a military unit that you watch like this wishy-washy thing when something happens. So I'll give you a little bit of context to what I'm talking about. When I was in the Army, even back in 2019, I think, 2020 time period, Iran was jacked up back then too. I remember going and filling out SGLI paperwork and doing like deployment packets and stuff like that because we just didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
Because it was always like this thing of like, what's Trump going to do next? You know? And so I've brought this up to several other people. So I brought up the April 6th, 2017. I was in Syria.
Right.
Strike. April 13th, 2018. That was in Syria. That was a strike. June 3rd, 2020, Baghdad. We executed assassinated the nerd that was there. June 21st, 2025 was the Iran nuclear strikes. I agree, aside from some of this stuff in Syria, because I can't get behind it because I don't agree with some of that. Because, Trump basically turned his back on the Kurds, and there's that whole thing that's there. But when I'm looking at this pattern, right, I feel like he's abused Article 2 powers, which is he's gone and he has taken military action that could have potentially, even though it didn't, but could have potentially put us in a full-blown freaking war where we're going to have to send America's young men to go die because he wanted to flex and act like Billy Badass with other countries.
Yep.
So, do you believe that Congress should have to authorize any new military action against countries like Iran?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the law. The Constitution is pretty clear.
Well, hold on. So the Constitution, this is where my party and I disagree. Well, it's not that we disagree. The Constitution basically says if we're going to go and enter into a war, Congress because Congress funds war. Right. Congress,
the definition of war is the problem here, right? And
I just feel like if we're going to go out and we're going to start, this is the way I'll word it because I haven't with the past two other candidates. Is it fair to you as my representative for the president to go out and run his freaking mouth and go and bomb another country, and then it come back to Congress and goes, okay, we bombed this country and they hate us now. Now they want to go to war. Are we going to war? You guys going to fund war? Are you guys going to declare war?
Right.
Is it fair to you?
Right. That's the problem. That's what I said. Fundamentally Congress should control this. This is why we need to have a better Congress, right? Congress being ineffective isn't just a political problem. Congress not being able to pass laws and deal with things and deal with national security is affecting our national security. Because what happens is people like Trump get in, Obama get in, right? This isn't a partisan thing. This is a thing of presidents need to defend our country, right? We need to be able to use force where appropriate. We need to be able to react quickly. But Congress can also react quickly, right? There's no actual stoppage of Congress passing a law and doing something to speed up the funding of or approval of missions. And I think basically we need to have a much stronger War Powers Act that explicitly defines a short-term, one-time engagement in an emergency situation where the president had to make a call in the military, or the military had to engage for some reason, and ongoing military operations where we're moving carriers around, we're moving troops around, right? We're restructuring the logistics of our whole military operating kind of force around it. That's the difference, right? That's where you can slide that. And so I would look at it as right now, Congress needs to take the reins here and say yes or no, declare whether they think Iran is a good idea or not, and how much money they want to spend on it and where that is. But that also requires the administration telling them what the goals and objectives are. Because I wouldn't say that there's a policy of difference between Republicans and Democrats right now. There's a policy difference between Trump and everyone else, right? Trump is just doing things. Trump didn't ask for permission. I mean, I didn't love George W. Bush, but at least he had the respect to lie to us, to get us into war and get Congress to approve it, right? Like, he knew that he had to get Congress to do that. He knew that that there was a constitutional problem here. So they did their things, and you can say whether that was good or bad. I don't think it was good, but they did. Trump just went and did it, right? And there's a big difference between Venezuela, which you can also have a lot of controversies over, but it was a short-term limited engagement for something, and Iran, which was just bombing, right? They bombed, and then now we're in a whole different ballgame. You said it hasn't yet. It hasn't yet brought our troops on the ground. It hasn't yet pulled us in.
Well, no, I want to actually,
we're getting close.
I want to fix that.
Yeah.
Because somebody recently even came on the show and said, well, we haven't had boots on the ground yet, except for Special Forces. Special Forces is the infantry guy.
Right.
So,
no, my friend
is boots on the ground.
My friend is an EOD bomb squad. I get what the Special Forces are, right?
Yeah.
And how they work, and how that's someone's boots on the ground. Right?
Delta is the infantry.
Right.
Like, they put boots on the ground.
Right.
So,
just because they're elite doesn't mean that they're not boots on the ground.
Exactly.
Right?
And so, well, I mean, it's kind of like that with Maduro. And I just, in the way that I've kind of worded it, has been like, we've been lucky so far.
Right. We've been very lucky.
We've been very, very lucky. And I think, do I believe that there's somebody in the background that's like, hey, this is the risk. This is are they actually going to do something? No, we're good. Do I agree that we went and picked up I like the fact that we went and picked up Maduro for one reason and one reason only. Not because he was a freaking lunatic as a president. That's not my problem. And that's not our problem either. I don't care if it has to do with the oil that's offshore or not, how we're seasoning it and all that bullshit. The thing about it is this. I like the fact that we did it because it scared the out of the rest of the country, or out of the rest of the world. Because they looked at that and was like, dude, Delta was in and out like that. And they went and stole the president of a country. I think that's great. I think people do need to be scared of that. What I don't find great is if it would have went wrong. Is if you would have had another thing.
It was a big gamble.
Is if it would have been like Black Hawk Down.
Right.
We would have had a freaking chopper that got shot the down. Now we have to send in rescue missions. Now we have Americans that are on the ground, that are injured, that are hurt, and Congress never knew about it.
Right. That's the thing.
And Congress now you put them in a situation where it's an international incident. We have to decide whether or not we're going to go to war.
Right.
And like, these are the types of things where it's just like, and that's we have the best military in the world. Right. I have got to serve in a unit that was one of the most elite in the Army. Okay. And we spent a lot of time like practicing. Half the time you're always you train for a deployment sometimes for up to 2 years before your unit, platoon, company even goes. That's the reason why when we get there aren't many mistakes because we've been practicing for so long.
Yeah.
But the issue with it is that mistakes do happen. And people are humans, and like
intelligence is wrong, right? Like it's
I mean, we can even look at like these strikes and these bomb strikes and stuff like that. I mean, when you start to do this, my point is that I believe that there should be some sort of regulation there to where I'm not saying that every single time the president's like, hey, we got to do something about this, he has to involve Congress. But there needs to be, I feel like there should be like a scale, like what we were talking about. Like it's kind of hey, I'm using missiles.
Right.
Well, that's going to be approved. Like, I'm using,
we're gonna put commandos on the ground and kidnap a sitting president of a country. Maybe at least the Gang of Eight should know about it and get to vote on it, right? Get to approve something.
But apparently that's the problem.
Right. But that's the problem is that we don't.
They're not going there.
Right. That's
well,
there's two big problems I see. One is that the leaks happen on both sides, right? So the political military power basically says, don't tell Congress because they'll leak it. And that's a huge problem if we're electing people to Congress that we can't trust with military secrets, right? If that,
you know that
right,
I have,
right,
you know that I have a solution to that, right?
What is that?
So this gang of 8 or whoever make
Right.
the stupid decisions or whatever, before one of these operations go on, you show up to their house. 8 federal agents show up to the house and say, "Hey, you're coming with me." Because when you're in Congress, you're almost kind of like you don't really have like. I mean, you got rights, I guess.
No, but it's like being in the military, right?
Yeah,
It's like
I mean, I'm
you're,
kind of like,
right, you're in.
You're in
right,
there.
Right.
Take their phones away.
Yeah.
You pull them into a room. You say, "This is what's happening.
Right.
You know about this now. What do you think?"
Right.
And you're not going to leave until this operation's over.
Right.
And then at least
I
do
think-
that, though.
and-
You have the power to do that. Do it.
Right.
Do it.
And I also am fine with pretty harsh enforcement of people who leak sensitive military information.
No shit.
But we also have
Yeah.
a huge overclassification problem, which is a different issue. But like
Yeah.
for real things, right? For the things like this that are like a military mission, whether you agree or disagree with it, right? It still puts our troops in big harm's way if you're out there tweeting about it and telling people and trying to make it a political maneuver, right? When there's something there, even if you disagree with the president's take on it, right? But this is why I keep saying elect better people. We just need to elect better people from the president on down, right? Down to mayor. We need to elect people who care about our community, who care about our country, who won't do that, right? And I know all sorts of people in the military. Again, one of my best friends is a EOD Special Forces guy. And so I've kind of grown up with him in the military, and I've been to many bases with him. I've hung out with a lot of guys. I've met some of the most honorable people, right? That take this stuff seriously, really seriously, at a patriotic duty, right? They are defending our country, right? And they really are. And I've met guys who just are in it for the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
It's the military. There's both sides of it. And so Congress is similar, right? There are people who are in it for the right reasons and who are in government for the right reasons and who care. And there's people who aren't. And we need voters to hopefully be able to discern a little better about which one, because the more people we have up there who are just good fundraisers, that's it. They're good at fundraising for their reelection, then they have no incentive to try and actually help the country, because that doesn't help them get reelected, right? And that's the big difference. And I think just fundamentally that I think we agree there, right? That this is a question of power, not policy, right? Does Congress have the power to stop a war or to start a war? Yes or no? Not exactly which war in exactly which situation. And I think that Congress should have more of an ability to start and stop those wars than they have now. Right. I just don't like it being in any one person. I didn't like it under Obama. I don't like it under Trump. I think having the president be able to just unilaterally declare things and do missions that we don't know about, that we have no choice in, because you're right, when they go bad, or even if they go fine and they're a successful mission, a year later when something happens and Americans don't understand why it happened, and it's like, oh, right, well, we did spend the special forces in there and bomb a bunch of people, but you never heard about it because it was classified. Yeah. We should know about where our military is being used for, right? We should know about where our military is and why they're there, at least at a public level of they exist in this. Why are we have so many in Africa, or why do we have so many people in different communities that we're not at war with, right? That we don't have alliances with, that we don't. Yeah. There's a lot in the military that we need to discuss and figure out. I'm not saying they're all bad or good, but we need to understand what they are, and then people need to understand why we're there so that they can make good decisions about who should represent us. Because if we don't have that, then people are making decisions thinking that that's not an issue, and it is an issue. And this power structure design issue is a huge thing. And I'm glad you brought it up, even if we kind of might have some edge differences around when and how. I think we fundamentally believe that representatives of our people should be able to decide if we go to war or not.
If you are the one that's going to be sending my brothers to go die in a foreign fucking country, then you need to know about any type of attacks that we're making towards other countries.
And I should have to come home and look you in the face after doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas no president's ever going to have to do that. No president or vice president or secretary is ever going to have to go and sit at a park and talk to the families who lost a kid. Local representatives are. And that's why I think it's so important. It's a really not just I'm running for Congress, so I think Congress should have the power. I really think it's important because Congress is the only place where the federal government touches people, and in that way where they can change their representative, and they should be able to. They should be able to say, no, I think you're too liberal with policies around when we deploy troops, or you're too conservative and you're not doing it enough, and I wish you would do it more. Good, let's talk, right, about those issues. But right now we can't, because the president can just do whatever. They classify it all, and no one knows what we're doing out there. And I think that's a huge problem.
Yep. All right. I'm going to move on to a sensitive one between the two parties. So I have a daughter.
Uh-huh.
I have a son too. Both of them are in school now. One of the big things that's kind of been brought up lately is sports.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this has gone to Congress. But if Congress votes on legislation prohibiting biological males from competing in girls' and women's sports at schools receiving federal funding, you vote yes or no?
So I think that I would try as much as possible to not have the federal government getting involved in local sports leagues. Like, I just think it's a bad policy way to deal with it. I think that it's an important issue, and I'll talk about the issue, but I think the federal government is the wrong instrument to solve this problem. Basically, there's times in certain sports, swimming and football and basketball, where size and muscle matter, right? And puberty going through it matter. There's other sports that's not so important, right? This is why I'm like, I don't think that putting a federal ban is the right way to do this. Let individual schools and sports teams and communities pick what makes sense for their community. I remember in Tallahassee, there was a woman, a girl, I guess, who was like 16 or 17, and she played on the football team. And it was a controversy back then when I was in school. This wasn't trans stuff. This was just a girl, right, playing on the football team. And it was like made the front page of the paper and it was the whole thing. But she was a kicker and it was kind of fun and no one cared, right? It was fine. If there's the same thing in a trans community where there's someone who wants to play a sport and they can and the team doesn't care and like it doesn't bother anyone, then let them do that. The federal government getting involved to ban something that is less than how many trans people are there? There's not that many. How many of them are trying to get lettered varsity sports teams together? Very, very few. This is not a problem, right? This is just not a big scale problem. And so I think the federal government should stay out of it for the most part, unless there's real incidences of something happening.
Well, there has been.
Right.
And so normally it has been in sports. Swimming was like one of the big ones. And so this really...
But it's one person. You know what I mean? Like it's one person.
Well, the trans community is probably, it's a very small thing. And I agree with you on that aspect. The issue that I'm having, it's just like combat sports. It's like a dude that,
and that's what I'm saying. If there's
gets
a sport,
his ass kicked.
If there's a league that the sport says that like, no, this is unsafe, the same way we already have gendered sports. Like we already have gendered sports. This isn't weird to have men's sports and leagues and women's sports and leagues. We're trying to figure out right now on this very specific kind of someone who transitions or who's in the middle somehow. And again, it's such a small percentage of people that I feel like it's crazy that Congress is like talking about of all the things we have to really deal with, right? This is what are you talking about? Why are we dealing with this? But I also think that in many cases, the trans kids who have gone in and played have like the local community's fine with it, right? It's the state and national political players who like make a big deal about it. If there's places where it doesn't work, then I'm okay with a law saying that that a local community has the right to declare who can play in different sports. Like that would set the floor where I think it should be. But that means if they want to declare that a student can play, that they should be able to play. I don't want it just to be one-sided and say that only trans people are bad, right? There might be a case where the team is fine with it and the other teams are fine with it and locally there's no problem because it doesn't cause a problem. Let them in. Why can't they play? Why are we stopping a student from playing a sport? Right? Like that seems like
a lot of the times it has to do again with males that are like in high school,
right.
And then in high school,
so let that sports team decide that rule.
Well, no, the reason why that can't happen is because of things like my daughter.
Right.
Just pretend my daughter's going to Mosley. She freaking is on the swim team.
Right.
And then there's a boy that transitions because he was getting his ass kicked in boys.
Right.
And then he transitions over and then he takes my daughter's slot to go to a college.
Right. So I'm okay if the school or the swim, like I don't know what the league is or the national organization that monitors, because they have these very strict standards on awards and on the whole process of the different heats and of the structure when you get to the Olympics and all that stuff, right? There's all these kind of built-in structures we have. Let those groups decide if that person shouldn't play. Like that's fine because they went through puberty and they don't meet the requirements of what a woman swimmer is. Okay.
Yeah, but
right?
you're putting it up. You're letting these associations and these teams decide something that was already decided at birth. Like either you're a boy or you're a girl. There's no in between.
Well, I think that's the big difference is, do you think that this exists or not? And I do think trans people are real people. I think there are real people who have transitioned. They had there is a mental or physical thing at birth that they weren't in the right body. They weren't whatever it is that they kind of have to go through. And it's not a comfortable thing. I mean, that's the thing. People act like, oh, you're going to just switch over and become a woman to win a swimming competition. Like, I don't think that's what's happening here at all. Like, that is not that is a media projection of this, right? Like, I've never once met a trans person who honestly has ever said, like, boy, go keep fighting the sports fight, right? Like, it's not a sports thing. The problem in the trans community is they can't get medication, they can't get housing, they can't get they get fired from where they work. I'm protecting that. I'm for protecting people's dignity and their life. Sports is not, again, the thing that I think is the problem here in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a distraction, and I think it's something that Fox News and many other groups put out to make people feel scared about trans people when they're such a small, like I said, you're talking about 1 or 2 people total. You're talking about like the swimming thing. I think it's like there's one person who's like a trans swimmer who's in the top national groups of stuff. That's it. There's maybe 1 or 2 others in college somewhere in this. Okay, right? Like, let's deal with those individual people and figure out what's going on. I don't think Congress needs to pass a law defining men and women in sports. That's just something we might not agree on.
I don't think that there should be a topic of discussion at all. I think that it should already be, you're a man, you're a woman, you're a boy, you're a girl. Right. You compete over here, you compete over there.
And that's how it is for 99.9% of people. And so for the ones that don't meet that criteria, then let's have a discussion about it and talk. And again, that's why I think it has to be at an individual like school or team or league level, because you don't know. Because there's some people where transitioning matters. Swimming, if you transition after puberty, there's things that you're going to be physically different. There's other sports where that doesn't matter. So I don't think that Congress putting together a list of every single sport. Does the chess club count? Do the mathletes count? Does that matter, right? I don't know. Well, because if you just do it the way Congress writes dumb laws, they're going to do some broad stroke thing and mess up a bunch of other stuff that doesn't need to be messed up. This is where I'm saying Congress is just the wrong instrument to deal with this thing. It is an issue. We need to talk about it. We need to deal with it. But let's let the local teams, the local sports, the national committees and associations deal with this. And most of them have too. If you read the Olympics, they have pretty good definitions of what this is. Of course, there's new people coming in. So every year there's a little bit of we have to kind of figure this out now because it's been 4 years or whatever. Great. Let's do that.
We're the only country that has this issue, though.
Right.
Even with the small percentage that we have,
right.
No other country has this issue.
Yeah, and I haven't honestly looked into it enough to know if other countries have the issue. I just know that fundamentally I'm like, this is a... you're talking about one kid in Ohio.
Well,
you're talking about one
you're
kid
talking
here,
about
right?
less than a centimeter on a yardstick.
Right.
So I mean,
I also get that it is very important for those kids who've done it. Like, I would be very mad if I felt like my kid, who I spent all my time trying to get them in, and then they got beat by a swimmer who I thought was not a legitimate swimmer in that competition. 100%, right? Like, I get the parents' problems here of this. And this is why I think it's up to each sports league to define this and figure it out. So if you're going to pass along Congress, let's pass a law that says you need to define this. You have to put it together, and there has to be a way to basically certify, and then we're done, right? Here's your sport has said that gender matters, that size matters, that these things happen. So you're going to count it for this requirement. This other sport over here doesn't, right? They don't care because the size and the puberty and the male gender thing really isn't as important. So we're not going to care in this sport. Fine. I'm not a sports expert, so I don't know if every sport, which one they have. And that's why I don't want Congress saying that, right? And putting that in there. Again, I'm for good government. I'm not for bigger government. And this is one where I feel like it's just bigger government. Yeah. This is bigger government. I want the biggest government we need and the smallest government we can get. Right? That's how I think about it. And this feels like one that's an overstep of government in a fundamental way. Not about the issue itself, just about government shouldn't be in this place. This is something people can deal with on their own together. And I don't want government branching out even more into our sports leagues and things like that.
Good. I like that. We'll debate on it later.
Yeah, that's fine.
But let's talk about U.S.-Israel defense integration.
Yes, it's a hot one.
Well,
right
actually,
now.
sorry, I skipped one. Well, no, we'll come back to that. Okay, would you support legislation expanding U.S.-Israel defense integration?
So, no, not
something
at the,
recently that's come
no,
up.
it's like last night. Like they're moving this right now.
Yeah.
So basically, the way it's written now, no. This current one, I would not vote to approve it. with that language in explicitly, not the bigger NDAA, like the funding and everything, but this Israel basically thing.
We have something in common with the Republicans.
Yeah,
because
exactly. Right.
So,
here's the thing. These bills, this shouldn't be in the same bill, right? Like the funding authorization bill for the government and the military should be in one thing. And then you want to change policy inside of that, that should be in a different thing. Because the funding has to happen or the troops don't get paid and like really awful things start to happen. Policy within how that money is spent should be approved separately in separate line item bills. So fundamentally, we don't need to be doing this. But I get why they can't politically pass anything, so they have to pump everything into one bill. My worry about it is not Israel. Like, we already share a lot of technology with Israel. Israel's already a huge cybersecurity and drone provider and AI provider. Like, we have integrations with Israeli tech, like crazy amounts. And we invest in Israeli tech and we use Israeli tech.
Integrating military.
Right. This is not new. What is new about what they're doing in section, I think it's 219 right now, is that they're putting in the infrastructure to keep it, right? So they're putting in the officer who's in charge of that whole military program. They're starting to tell military that the point is to expand and integrate, right? It's those languages that are like, so now every military commander is going to say, well, my orders are strengthen and integrate this technology in. Maybe that's good, maybe it's not. I don't like the idea of Congress, though, again, kind of picking winners and losers. I'm okay with Congress saying we need better technology. We want these outcomes. Here's what we want, but not Israel specifically, right? That's not their job. That's the commander's job. That's the military's job to decide which allies have better technology, which firms to go through, which vendors to use. Not Congress's job to like define that exactly. So again, the reason I don't like it is because I think it puts too much integration and kind of bureaucracy into the Israeli piece specifically, so that we're now integrated with them, which we are at that point. Now we've got like jobs counting on it. We've got funding counting on it. We've got actual processes for how to move that quickly between research, R&D, and military application. So once that pipeline starts, now we can't really turn it off, right? Because our troops are relying on it. And so you don't turn it off ever. That's what I don't like about it. We already use Israeli tech, though. I don't distrust Israeli technology. I think Israeli makes amazing tech. I think they're some of the cutting edge leaders on this because they have to be, right? They're in a war. They've been in a war for 40 years. And so I don't have a problem with Israel. This is a problem with, I don't like us being basically dependent on another country's military, and what their military wants now becomes what our military wants. I don't like that. I think that we don't need to do it. And, that's, so I wouldn't have voted for that, but it doesn't really change a whole lot on the ground side, but it changes a lot on the ongoing bureaucracy, kind of institutionalism of that relationship.
I agree. All right. So now, will you accept campaign contribution or outside support from AIPAC or any foreign policy advocacy organization?
Nope.
Thought that was going to be a longer topic.
No, I mean, across the board. I don't think that I want any money from groups that are trying to influence how I think about international affairs or military. I think that's I'm supposed to represent you all. So that means you tell me how you think about it. We've got experts here. I meet with people at Tyndall all the time. I meet with people in Tallahassee all the time who have a lot to say about these issues. That's who I'm going to go to and try and get them to give me a check, not to go get some industry lobbyist to give me money, so that I can deal with the nest of wasps that is. So no, I'm not accepting it from any of them, and I don't want it. And that's that.
So I'm gonna switch gears on you. This has to do with government shutdowns. We only got 3 or 4 more questions left.
You're good.
Okay.
You tell me when to shut up. I'll keep talking.
So when I served on active duty, I remember there was a few times where I didn't know what was going to happen if I get paid, if I don't get paid. Right. Government is shut down. Federal employees, that happens to quite a bit. Because military pay becomes pretty uncertain. And there was even a period when death gratuity benefits for families of the fallen service members. If Congress can't perform its most basic constitutional duty of funding the government, why should service members and their families bear the consequences of Congress stuff?
100%. I mean, trust me, again, my best friend is been in the military our whole adult life. Yeah. I've watched this on phone calls with him, right? And his kid and his wife, and figuring out this stuff. And
it's not fun.
And it's catastrophic, especially again.
Especially when
people think about the military and think individual soldiers and airmen and deployed people. most of the military is people at Tyndall here that never leave, right? They work here. It's a job, right? They're not overseas. They're not doing that stuff. And they're concentrated on bases. So that means if you have an entire base like Tyndall and MacDill, and I lived 3 blocks from MacDill in Tampa for a while. You see the economic output at bars and restaurants right there in South Tampa. Tyndall, you see the economic output right here. It's direct. You turn that off for a whole base, even for a week or two. That's not just soldiers not being able. That's everybody else very quickly in a community that's probably already not wealthy, right? They don't put military bases in the most premier areas.
Yeah, I know.
So South Tampa is probably actually an interesting one, an anomaly that way.
I lived down there.
But
I was right there because they got the JSOC.
Yeah, it was
command
it was cool. I was like 2 blocks away on the water back when you could get an apartment for $500 a month, and was watch the jets fly over. It was a fun apartment. But basically, no. I think that the law should basically be if Congress shuts down the government, Congress doesn't get paid from that moment forward. Just like they don't get the money back paid. They don't it should be a severe consequence. But the other piece of it is that most people in Congress are multimillionaires. They're not living off this paycheck, right? This doesn't hurt them. They probably didn't know if they got paid or not. And then some people in Congress can't afford to live because they already live in expensive areas and they're having to maintain 2 homes, and it's a job for them, right? So I think that they should all be accountable in that sense, that they shouldn't get paid if they're not paying the troops. The other piece is I think we need to make sure that we just have some bit of reserve that's like, the extra bucket that pays soldiers for up to maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, right? Stick that in a little just investment account somewhere that Congress doesn't touch, and it's an overflow valve of only if the government shuts down, certain people get paid. The post office included, right? The military,
federal employees.
Basically, not every federal employee maybe, but most all of them, right? Where for a few weeks, right? It's not that they're just forever getting paid, but it gives Congress that little bit of buffer when this hits to do something. And then I think we do need to have actual incentives for Congress to get their act together and fund the government. I don't know what all those would be, but man, we got to try harder than this, because right now we're letting them trade stocks and get wealthy and shut down the government and hurt all of us, and then just walk away with no reactions at all. And that's a huge problem.
And we're about to get to that too. So I got 3 questions here. Just a yes or no. You don't have to give a long response unless you want to.
Okay.
Would you support requiring Congress to remain in Washington and continue voting until the government is funded?
Yes.
Would you voluntarily escrow your congressional salary during a shutdown until every affected federal employee and service member has been paid?
So I say yes, fundamentally, but I'm one of the people that probably I'm not wealthy, right?
Yeah.
Like I have to live too, right? So my wife is carrying us right now. And so, would I want to do that? Absolutely. Could I do that with 2 kids and guarantee that I just don't take a paycheck for however long because Congress is inept? I don't know.
Well, the military's not getting paid.
But I would say, if the military's not getting paid, I would certainly do something like that and put that aside or donate it to something as much as I could, right? I can't, but yes, we need to.
The next one is, would you support legislation guaranteeing that military pay and death gratuities can never again be delayed because of government?
Yes. I think we need to have a safe, a lockbox for that, if you will. Right?
We're going to move on to Social Security.
No, there we go.
All right. How old are you?
I'm 39.
All right. We're pretty close.
Yeah,
to
we're in the same.
age. Yeah. Oh, dude, these back-to-back ones. All right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. No. I think that's the part a lot of people don't understand. This is a service. I'm not.
Yeah.
You're not paying me to be here, and I'm just kind of I'm not making any money at all, and it's I just do this because it's when I ran for office, and I think most people that have ran for office can agree with this.
Right.
The news channels give you little sound bites here and there. These forums, you're timed.
Right.
You're not able to explain anything.
Right. No.
And then, if you were to get on your own personal thing and then you talk into your camera or something like that, people are like, okay, well, he
now
probably
it's just a campaign thing. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we need more local podcasts. I don't know how many you've done so far.
No, we've done a couple, but we need more.
Yeah.
I mean, really seriously, the local press is kind of gone. I mean, there's a bit of it, but it's
the local news
people
channels,
keep acting like they're
suck.
waiting on them to do something. And I'm like, guys, I've been explicitly told by news directors and by high up people, these are all bought by national corporations. Tallahassee Democrat is just USA Today. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's it. It's not, they don't have a staff that's like hunting down investigative journalism here. They get told what to go find and they go find it, right? And they maybe sometimes do some local stuff, but most of it is just rewritten stuff that's piped out from the national pipeline.
And then most of the time they get it wrong.
Right, and they get it wrong. So I really appreciate these kind of interviews because I think this is, and this is the kind of stuff that like, this is how I make decisions on candidates, right? Is listening to stuff like this and hearing a candidate out and understanding what they're saying. Because otherwise, again, we're never going to get through this if we keep just listening to the bullshit that gets piped out of the media and parties. It's not good.
All right. So the way I've explained it is I look at Social Security as a Ponzi scheme.
It's fair.
And the reason is because today's workers are paying today's retirees.
Yep.
And I worry that younger Americans are being asked to fund a system they may never fully benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand why many older Americans feel differently. They paid into a system for decades and expect what they were promised. The Retirement Trust Fund is projected to face a major funding shortfall around 2032 if Congress doesn't. Congress has known this for years,
right?
And you're running for the job is responsible for addressing it. So when Social Security reform comes before the House or the Congress, what is the first specific reform you're willing to vote for?
Remove the cap on the income that's paid in. So right now, you pay Social Security tax of 7% or whatever that is. It's a decent number, right? It's not a 0.5%. It's like 7% of your income goes into the Social Security, your tax fund. You can see it on your paychecks, right? You see the Social Security cut. If you make more than 107 or 170,000, I forget the exact number, but it's less than 200,000 or so in income, then you pay 100% of your money into that. As soon as you make over that cap, that threshold, you don't pay any more on that money. So if you, let's just say that the income cap is like $200,000, it's somewhere around that. Then if you make $500,000, you have $300,000 that you haven't paid any Social Security tax on, right? So somebody else pays 100% of their money into Social Security tax at 7%, and this other person who's richer, who's making a lot more money than you, pays effective rate of much lower, right? Because they're going to make all this extra money with it has no Social Security tax on it. So the first thing is just remove that cap. If you make money, you pay Social Security tax on it. That's it. That solves the math gap that we see right there. And for anybody who's getting a tax increase, it's the wealthiest people who make more than about 200,000 or so a year that right now don't pay much on that. And if you make it just a little bit more, you're not paying much more in taxes. If you make 5 million or you made $1 billion last year, which there are certain people who income made $1 billion, they're paying a 0.00001%, right, of Social Security tax, whereas I'm paying 100%. You're paying 100%, right? So that's something
they're still
I would do,
paying
right?
more than we are.
No, they're not. That's what I'm saying. They don't pay anything over that cap. So they pay the same rate.
The cap is a percentage.
It's a percentage of a capped dollar amount though. So it's like, so let's just say it's 200,000 just to make it easy.
Yeah.
If I made $200,000, I'd pay 7% of $200,000. Elon also pays 7% on the first $200,000. And then he pays nothing on any other income that he makes.
Oh.
Right. So the effective tax rate is just negligible. It's like nothing. And if you make $1 million or 5 million, which is a lot more people in that range, right? That make decent lawyers.
Fact checking it.
Right. Fact check it. Look it up. It's crazy. That's why I was like, just remove the cap. Just remove the cap on income.
Understand that until now. I'm going to do a little bit of research on it.
Go dive into it. It's fascinating and one of those things that's kind of this weird little loophole that they've gotten around.
That's crazy.
And they keep increasing it. So the cap is real.
Well, the only people that are paying Social Security are people that have W-2 jobs anyway, though, right?
Right. So Elon's a weird example because he doesn't have a W-2 job. But let's say a lawyer, right, at a partner firm. They make a lot of money. They get a bonus. Like that's a W-2 job, right? They're getting that, but they're making $5 million a year. There's a lot of those people who make good money. They're still only paying on the first 150,000 or 200,000, which might be the first month. Maybe by end of January, they've already made $200,000, right? Like they
already paid in.
They paid all their Social Security for the year. Everything else they make, they buy boats with, and they do vacations and spend money. Well, let's take 7% of that and just pay that into Social Security. That solves the math, right? That you're seeing there. So
they're only paying the same.
So basically,
it is the same amount.
Right, of actual money across the board. There's like a limit to how much money the U.S. government can raise in Social Security because of that cap. So we just need to raise that cap. Whether we raise it to infinity or whether we raise it to $10 million, I don't know. But either way, it would solve the problem, right? Of basically, of the worry that we don't have enough money in the fund coming in. That would solve it. But it's a big problem because it is true, right? Both those things are true. Some
Just
people
blew-
are
you just
paying
blew my
into it.
mind. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
It's crazy. And it's simple. So that's my answer to that one.
Dang, dude.
Get rid of the cap.
All right, last question. It's been my favorite one out of all of them. Congressional stock trading.
Yes, yes.
Should members of Congress be prohibited from trading individual stocks while in office?
Yes.
And should it pass on to immediate family, wife, kids?
Yes. At least dependents. I mean, you can't, I don't think it's fair to say like some kids, somebody's kid or brother or something own stocks. But no, your dependent children should not be able to own stocks. Your wife, your immediate family. Yeah.
I mean, if they already have it, you let them keep it. But
I'm okay if you put them in a trust
yeah.
fund, basically a blind trust that says, here's our portfolio, right? We're moving it over here. Let someone manage it. But it's got to be a real blind portfolio, right? You can't just say like, it's a blind portfolio except when I text them, right? Like the portfolio has to be actually a thing where you don't get to call Fidelity and update any individual stocks. They can do that on their end with mutual funds and whatever it is. But I think it's a huge problem. Again, I don't actually own private stocks because I'm not wealthy. So I have some 401ks and some mutual funds just like everybody else does. That's how I invest. I don't have that. So it's not a personal problem for me on a what I have to divest from things or deal with that. But I think that we need to have people running for Congress that look at it as a public service. It's not a time to get rich. This is not your place to go and invest in a bunch of cool companies that you've heard of in classified or semi-classified briefings.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you can't do that. And I think it should also extend to the executive branch and federal, basically, maybe Senate confirmable level appointments, right? Not everybody in the federal government. Most people are just normal doing their job, right? But if you're in the major agency head level or sub head level, that's similar to Congress and their staff, right? I think that those people who are on the Hill, chiefs of staff, right? Communications director, the people that get the classified briefings and kind of understand, they're getting the same information the congressperson is, sometimes and mostly probably more because they're the ones who are actually reading them and most of the members aren't. So that's right. I would expand it out a little bit more, but that's all. I think that, we shouldn't have a corrupt top of government where they go and just grift off everybody. I mean, the fact that Pelosi and Republicans are both making 70% margins and the average for professional traders is like 12. Like the best you get in private market is 12. And some of these people are hitting 60 and 80, 70% is something needs to be done here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you win the seat, immediately before you're sworn in, you meet with a financial advisor, you move it into a private trust that's that's an actual block trust so that, you can put it in there, or you can buy just mutual funds, right? Just normal index funds kind of things. You pick how you want to do it, but you have to divest from you having private control of this, or even having control, again, calling your business advisor and telling them what to do. People kind of say, and I'm like, no, if you can just call them and tell them to make the trade, that's the same as you making the trade. That doesn't solve anything. So it's really got to be that you can't have any communication with this thing while you're in office. We're paying you well. You get a lot of perks for being in office. When you're out of office, sure, right? You can go back to trading privately. But while you're in private briefings, when CEOs are meeting with you because you're the government, you're the one they have to meet with and tell things to, and you're seeing the differences between the regulatory regimes and what's going on and who's going to get an approval for something and who's not, you just can't have that much back behind the scenes knowledge and then be acting like you're not going to be influenced to do that. Because I don't think you look at everybody who's been on the big list of the unusual whales type people, that are on there. They're not all bad people, but they're also all realizing, well, it's my one shot to kind of make some money. And it's like, well, this is a really bad incentive market to be putting
really
into
taking
Congress.
a huge chance.
The same with the poly market and these betting sites and stuff. Like, I mean, it's the same thing, right? These are people who know what's going on. They're in the room and then they're betting on it and just clicking the checkbox that says, I don't have no conflict of interest. I mean, it's like we got to have some teeth to it. And I think the same way, if you're in Congress and you're accused of this and they can show that the timing is too direct, then boom, you need real serious penalties, not just sort of the media yells at you, but it needs to have teeth where you get to, either jail time or at least some real big fines and penalties so that you make no money off it. Because if we still let it be profitable, then you take the slap on the wrist and you keep going, right? So it has to be that, no, your profits all get taken, right? You're not allowed to do this, and you're maybe not allowed to run for office again, right? Yeah. We can't maybe kick you out, but we can say that you're not allowed to be on the ballot next time, right? You're just forced out.
You can never hold a clearance.
Right. You can't hold a clearance. Like, there's a lot of things we can do. We should use those tools because, again, voters need to elect better people. But if the people they elect aren't honorable people, then our government is too important for us to be held hostage by these folks grifting it. And that's what I don't want. So.
That's all the questions I have.
Right.
Is there anything that we didn't hit on that you would like to discuss?
No, this was a wide ranging and great conversation. I really appreciate the time, and hope your listeners appreciate it and liked it too. And again, we're just out there all over the place trying to win this primary and go do something to protect this place we call home and get to do something different. And I'm really excited to hopefully get up to DC and start working on a lot of these things and make sure that our kids have a better life than they're likely to get if we don't have somebody up there paying attention to this stuff and trying to stop it. And so I'd appreciate everything, and I'd also love to talk with anybody who wants to. Any of your listeners who disagree or agree with me, go to my website, check us out. We've you can even write down my phone number is 850-242-4166. Give me a text. Like I'm talking with people all day long, and I'd love to talk with anybody who wants to discuss more. Somebody early on in this called me dangerously reasonable. And I feel like it's a line that has stuck, and we actually have a T-shirt somebody made of it, and I love it because I feel like that's what it is. It's not about partisanship. It's about respect and integrity, and being dangerously reasonable, doing something but not crazy things that just for no reason. So I really appreciate the time.
That's one of those crazy things, right? Like I just had lunch, and one of my buddies was even saying, he was just like, dude, just got your podcast started back up, and it's just been like back to back with all these candidates. How are you getting them to sit down with you? And it's like, dude, I just call them. I call him and I talk to him just like anybody else. And
that's the thing. Most people, I tell people,
they don't even call.
I'm going to have coffees and conversations with people all the time. If you want to talk seriously, give me a text or a call. I'm just a guy raising my kids here who grew up here. And if I wasn't running for Congress, you would just sit down and have a conversation with me about any of this stuff, and we would just kind of bitch and groan and rant together, right? Yeah. Well, now I'm in a different spot of I'm trying to run for Congress to do that professionally, right? So we can actually have these conversations, and that doesn't mean we're going to agree. Of course, right? That's fine, but we can disagree on individual ways to deal with something. But I think we both agree in the value of a strong America. We value in a strong economy, on privacy, on our kids being raised in an area that has good values and morals and judgments. I mean, these are fundamental things that aren't partisan. And the fact that some of those have become partisan is a huge problem. And I hope we can get back to respectful dialogue and also getting some stuff done. I mean, we got a lot of problems. We got a lot of good things happening too. And we didn't really talk about a lot of those. But there are good things, and I want to invest in those. We have real hope on the horizon that people are doing really cool stuff with technology, but also just in communities, right? The MLK Center down here, great, awesome place. We can turn those places into incubator labs for small businesses, for making sure that our community has the resources it needs in this next technical wave to use it and to understand it and have secure access to AI and to all sorts of things. I'm excited about the future. That's the thing. I am excited. I'm hopeful, but I don't think we get there automatically. I think we have to have people in there trying to chart the vision so that we get there and it actually sticks, and we don't just get taken advantage of again, right? Which we're very used to that happening with changes. So thank you much.
Well, thanks, Nick. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.